All right, we're gonna go ahead and have our call to order, please. Get started. Mr. Mansfield, can you give us the invocation?
Be glad to. Let's pray. Dear Jesus, we just thank you for the opportunity to just be here and serve the people. Lord, we just need wisdom and guidance, and give us discernment to understand things, and wisdom and prudence on know how to manage the taxpayers' money and the things that we're being entrusted with, and the due diligence we're required to do, and to make sure we're making the best decisions before us, God. And just pray for your blessings for all of our first responders and all of our county employees and our courtroom employees, Lord, and our school employees, and anybody that in our county system, God, that you would just bless them and bless their health and their finances and their well-being. And we just thank you for your blessings, and we just submit ourselves to you, God, and ask for your favor and grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Did you want
With an addition, if there's a request for budget adjustment I'd like to add to the agenda.
Okay. Can you get us ready in a second? Well,
second?
and what's the agenda item?
It is from the law director for overtime funds and just temporary personnel.
All right, we'll move that to the end of new business. It'll be
Can you take a vote?
item C, yeah, hypothetically, if we get to item C, would that be sufficient? We'll move that at the end of new business.
B, D.
Got it. All right, yeah, item D.
Mr. Chairman, should item 6B4 also be removed? That's the one that didn't make it through emergency services. It's back in emergency services.
Yes,
And appropriations, Oak Grove Volunteer Fire.
Yeah.
yeah, so B4 would be removed, could be removed. We can put this all in one motion.
Or we just approve it,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Anything else that we would want to change?
Well, as far, under education, the budget amendments for info only, that's federal money. I mean, we have no say in that. The Board of Education's one that approves that.
So what's the
We can
suggestion?
Well,
Just want,
delete it, yeah.
just remove it?
Yeah.
So this is, sorry, this is old business or
New business.
New
new
business
business where
education.
you at?
Number two.
Budget amendment- oh,
6A1.
Number one.
Number
For
one.
info only.
Got it.
Right, is education docketing it to the
On
commission
there, so it goes on the minutes.
for it to be docketed?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't need to vote on that.
Mr. Brown, we would need to keep that.
Okay.
I think Mr. Commissioner Brown was saying that education, I think, is docketing of that item, so you wouldn't have to run it again if you don't want to.
So you're
In
saying?
other words, if the education committee is docketing it, these are the ones that, under statute, do not have to be approved by county commission. So all the statute really says is, within 7 days, they'll inform the county commission. So historically,
Okay.
we've docketing it. Another possibility would be for the Board of Education to email it to all the commissioners, because they all have email, and then to docket it direct. But I think that's
So,
but it could go to education only directly too.
I wouldn't want to cut it out completely out of the process, because citizens look at this and go through
Yeah, I
this.
don't want to take it out of the process, but here again, if we're looking at time, that's a whole lot of stuff that we have no say on
and I think we
whatsoever.
can be pretty quick with that one.
Yeah.
I don't think that one's not gonna take a lot of time. All right, so just, summarizing this then, so the motion then is to approve the agenda with, two amendments. One is removal of B4 and the Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department, and then adding, a new business item D, which is, the request for budget adjustment for the law director. Is that, Mr. Mansfield, is that the motion?
Yes.
That's the second.
All right, go ahead and we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved unanimously. All right, recognition of the public. Anyone who'd like to speak? Okay. So can I'd like to entertain a motion here to approve the minutes from September 12th.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on here to my report. So, what I have here is a staffing study. So, I'll make a, well, actually, I guess I need to entertain a motion on it, but let me just make a comment on this real quickly. We've had a request for a staffing change and a couple small staffing changes of different types. And these are good packets that we've seen, at least in my opinion. I've seen a very good request in at least one spot. What I'm concerned about is fairness, because after speaking with the finance director, we had a number of 26 requests from last budget cycle, and these were, at least one of these was involved in that one. So I'm not saying I want to tie the one to the other, but it's clear to me, at least I think, that we need some type of third-party or objective look into the staffing of the county, to see, to get a kind of apples to apples comparison. Because otherwise what we've got, and this is just me, maybe happy to entertain any other discussion, but I don't know these departments. Everybody knows the departments well, but I want to. This body needs to be able to make an informed decision with some type of baseline. And so, what I would be proposing here for discussion, I'll make a motion for that for discussion, is to commission a staffing study with a third party, put it out to bid, and for this individual to come through, or group to come through and
I'll second that, if you're
determine
making a
what we
motion,
need.
so. Yeah, I mean, that's, citizens are definitely concerned that, questioning and ask me if, are some offices growing more than necessary to actually perform duties. So it's just a question, is it too much, too little? So what's the actual needs there, so.
Mr. Ryan?
You and I talked about this, and I'll have to say I'm still somewhat opposed to this, and I understand everybody's view in this, but we're going down the same path that we did with compensation study, a third party to determine compensation, and it cost us in the end $1.9 million, and plus other things on top of the 1.9 and 1.9. I sure hope we're careful that we have safeguards, I guess I would say, to let people know that we're not bound to anything by this study, because I have a feeling that it's going to be just like the compensation study. It's going to be more rather than less, and everyone's going to expect us to follow through on it since we commissioned it, and if we don't, then we spent money, and it's not necessarily necessary. It frightens me after that third-party compensation study of 1.9 million plus, and that doesn't include the study. That's what it costs to upgrade everybody.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, when was that study done?
Just within a year ago.
22, it was enacted in the
And the
22.
1.9 was to balance out
To bring
salaries?
people up to the study.
And we didn't even fully fund that study.
Yeah, we did.
Right, it was about another
For
million or
individuals.
two.
It's with the maximum we let any employee have was 10,000 or 25% of their current salary, whichever was lower.
Lower.
So, I want to be clear here about what I'm suggesting. I'm not, I understand this study, and I know what we're talking about there. And I understand the purpose of that study was to look at the salary of existing staff and, try to get some kind of market rate comparison. It was not a question of what staff are needed, or what functions are being served. So I think that what I'm suggesting is a different.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, I think, I will echo Mr. Hyde's comment. I mean, I think everyone
understands it's a different study. But we don't know what the results are gonna be, right? And so we spend this money, get the results, and then if the results come back and say, hey, everyone needs all these additional staff, then there's gonna be, obviously, people want the additional staff, right?
Yeah.
And so, we just gotta be prepared for that, whether we're gonna do it or not. But if we're gonna spend money to do the study, then I would think we would spend money to increase the staff.
And just giving an opinion as a staff member, I know after the salary study, even people who got significant raises, you know, a raise that they would have been ecstatic for beforehand, well, when you're told that, well, you're actually 30,000 underpaid, you're not as excited for that 10,000. And I mean, and that's just, people were talking, you know, I'm in this building, I hear them. And I think that if you have a study that says we're 40% understaffed, whether or not you promise it to them, what they're gonna be talking about is, this just proves what we've been saying. It could, unless there's follow through with it, it can cause more problems with employee morale than.
So these are good positions. And I can see myself voting against my own motion here, but I do have one counter, and that is, how is this body, best able to make an objective decision, when it comes to, understanding the needs of an individual, one department versus another department. And, we're not in there day to day. I mean, at that point, I feel like, my thought here is that we're at the mercy, and I don't mean this in any ill way, but we're at the, kind of the mercy of the department heads, and we don't have any measuring stick to kind of fall back on.
That was kind of the, what got the salary study started was, it seemed like the department heads that came in who were willing to be a little louder, their employees got raises, where the more reserved department heads, theirs didn't. And it just came down to who was willing to come and argue more, if their employees got raises, where
Yeah.
the idea was to try to not make that be the case.
That's right. And that's, I think, what I'm trying to avoid.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think we've heard the sheriff talk about understaffing in the jail. Since he's here, could you address how you come to that determination
Determination.
of how many you're understaffed?
So we had TCI come in, which is the state, and they told us how many people we should have for that building, for each floor, and for the jail, I'm talking for the jail specific.
And where do they get their
Mr. Scott will
staff?
probably talk to you better,
Yeah.
he is our jail expert on that.
Good afternoon. So TCI usually partners with CTAS. CTAS will do a salary staffing survey, every post that's required in the jail. And then when you have vacancies or overtime or annual leave, sick leave, et cetera, and they come with a number that we've tried to stay under, actually. When I got here is around 162. We can't hire that many people, they're just not out there. But that allows for inmate programming, normal food service, safe and secure constitutional operation of the jail. And so that number obviously was established before I got here. We didn't increase any when we added the addition to Tower 4 last year. We stood pat, but that number's around 160. That's a pretty conservative number. I'm confident that a staffing study would change that.
So,
Okay.
if I may say one other thing, we haven't added any new positions in the jail for the last 5 years.
Right.
So, I mean, we haven't added any numbers to that. We've just tried to keep it what we are already set for. Even though we've had up to over 900 inmates in there at one time. Currently, we're around 700, so because we have vacancies, we're having to work a lot of overtime. But because you have vacancies, you have the money to pay for the overtime. So, but that's how we were set by the state.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. And I guess what I'm getting at is, I do think at some level, we are at the mercy of the information that we receive from these constitutional elected offices. I don't think they're out there just arbitrarily throwing money, and I don't think that's what you're
That's not what
getting
I'm
at.
saying.
But,
Yeah.
I think what you're getting at is you want a kind of an idea of how many people are needed, so that when we get these requests, we can use that as a guide
Yeah,
or a tool.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Something objective, but, you know, Mr. Hyde's point is well taken here.
Get used like a sledgehammer, yeah.
It could come out that we're well understaffed.
Yeah, I just, we had talked about this, and we're in a very competitive job market right now.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough to get people when we need them. The salary survey did not help with the morale of employees, because, you know, they found that they're not competitive. And then now we're gonna do a staffing, and if we don't act on it, then it's gonna further demoralize the employees. And at the end of the day, we still have to carry out the day-to-day operations of the county. Citizens still expect services from their county that we have to deliver Monday through Friday. So I just, you know, I'm not against it. I just really want you, once you get those numbers, you know, make sure that we give them due diligence, because we just don't want to lose
Yeah.
more employees. That's my only concern. And the other, the question I have, this will include the constitutional officers?
I don't know that I've made that decision on it.
Okay.
I mean, I think ideally it probably would. Yeah,
Because that would basically have to be permissive.
yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little bit different. I mean, we
Yeah.
could narrow the scope of it, but, I hadn't thought through.
Okay.
I mean, literally, it was
Yeah.
can we get a guide?
Right.
Mr. Hyatt, I think.
I was just gonna say that there are two things. One is government employees are usually underpaid, but there are other advantages to being government employees, and that's a real plus in some areas. Secondly, I'm not trying to throw any rocks at this proposal. I just hope that you would allow me to, at the conclusion of it, and to say, I told you so.
So there you go.
Well, I don't know, I may vote against my own proposal here in a minute. I'm
Mr.
just-
Chairman,
Wisdom
I'm
from
gonna
the-
withdraw my second. on that. So far, your motion
Okay.
fails for lack of seconds.
Well, then you might have just saved me a little embarrassment, because I think
on that
I
a little bit
would
longer.
withdraw my own here. All right, so, I think we have is there any more discussion on this? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and, consider this one to have failed, and thank you all for, the good discussion on it. Mr. Mayor?
No report, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Long?
The first item is the library salaries, and actually the libraries are here. Back in July, there were some budget amendments that was brought through for a couple of departments that actually was not completed through the salary survey through the June 30, 2022 fiscal year. The libraries made a request that they could actually adjust for part-time and their salaries. And the proposal of the budget committee was for it to go to Human Resources, them to work out a plan and then send it back to me to make sure that it had the total amount of funds needed. There was some discussion, and during the discussion, it was my understanding that we were just to report back the adjustments, without saying the committees have changed. The proposal was sent to the commission, did not receive the 2/3 vote in July, so it came back in August. It was approved in August, which is attached, the information came back, so the libraries actually sent up the raises back in August. Talking with legal at the time, their opinion was, which I agree with, they weren't over the budget at the time, and the committee had actually said to make the adjustments and bring it back to report to them, so they said I had no legitimate reason to object to them. But attached to the front of this is the budget adjustments that is necessary to tie back with the numbers provided from the Human Resources Department. By all intents and purposes, my understanding is the committee approved these back in July for me to report to the committee, and the actual adjustments didn't get up until this past month from the libraries, why they're late too. But I'm just bringing it back to report to the committee all these adjustments,
So,
which is generally not how these are done.
forgive me here, do we need a, just try to get an idea, do we need a motion to discuss this? Or can we go ahead and discuss?
It should be.
Yeah, so, I'll entertain a motion to approve
So
this.
moved.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, so, open the floor for discussion. Yeah, go ahead.
So are these, I'm looking at page 7. This is just funds transferring, the funds are already in the library budget, they're just transferring line items within the library budget.
Yes, sir.
This is not a request for additional funding.
No, and there was a discussion, because this was one of my concerns when this transpired, is I wanted to make sure the committee at the time would not have an issue when I brought back these to report to them. But what has happened is the raises and the approval of the adjustments has actually happened under one committee, and when I end up reporting them back, it's actually under a second committee.
So I actually have some questions about this one. And tell me if I'm reading this right. We're removing about $63,000 from librarians. And we're increasing a supervisor by 13,000. Part-time personnel by, 20, over 30,000. What is the, I guess I don't understand this, like, the function of, I guess I just don't understand that, like, if we're supposed to have oversight into this and look into it, and I think that's what we're supposed to do here, if I were running a business and this were a department I was looking at, this would raise my eyebrow. Like, you got the libraries, and the libraries are out there, they're your frontline folks who are managing the libraries, and I'm taking a good bit of money, and it appears to be moving it to admin staff. I could be wrong, and part-time personnel. I guess I would just wanna understand what, this would raise my,
Part of a large part of the discussion was when they did the salary survey, part-time employees were not included. In the libraries, one of their chief complaints was that they, percentage-wise, have the largest number of part-time employees. Then I think their other chief complaint was that also they had, I guess, consolidated the libraries, and there was a limitation on how much any particular position could be adjusted. So there was a large, there's a copy of the minutes in here, but there's a large, long, drawn-out discussion. The ultimate conclusion for the budget committee was for it to be sent back to HR, and for HR and the libraries to work up a plan. For me, to just make sure that it agreed to the total dollars, and then report it back to the committee what had transpired. So I'm bringing this back as the report, but it happened under one committee, including the raises happened back in August, and the changes actually happened back in August.
okay, so the changes happened in August? So this has been affected? This
The
already been
the
done?
raises were done August retroactive, and when I talked to legal at the time, two things came about in the discussion. Number one, they were not over the budget at the time, so I don't really have a strong objection there. Number two, based on that the department, or the budget committee told me to go ahead and do this and then report back to them, they didn't think I had a strong objection there to actually take the raises. So when they send the raises, we actually enacted them back.
So-
I believe it was late August, it was on the last payroll in August.
So let me just make sure I'm following here. If we were to disapprove this, we would
need to go back
we would have to
and
go back and
do-
redo people's raises. They've already, had this now for 2 months.
receiving since July, they
Okay,
retroed
okay,
it back.
3 months.
They requested it retro back to July,
Okay.
yes. And we actually have the library here to discuss it.
David, did you say that, oh, I'm sorry, I got it in front of me.
No, that's- He can tell, you need to talk, so.
Oh, well, yeah, go
You
ahead.
can go
Yeah,
ahead.
go- oh.
I was just gonna ask, you kept saying at the time, they were within budget.
No, the
Are you
total,
implying that they are now?
no, they are within budget moving these line items.
Okay, okay.
My thing is, we were not over, so it's like any other line item, you come and adjust it, and I can project you're over the line item, I cannot really stop you until you're actually over the line item. At that point, I'll have to bring it back to the committee, and, a couple of things, look at, one, are they over in salaries, are they over by a non-salary line item, are they over in total? And at that point, I would bring it back to the budget committee for action. They weren't over at the time, so my objection there was very weak at best, and legal's correct. And the second, based on what had transpired at the budget committee, and there was a lot of discussion because this was my concern, then when I brought it back, they may not like the results, and that was a large part of the discussion back in July.
So if another expense or another budget request came later, then that would bring this one more into focus.
Yeah. Mr. Becker?
So this is the reporting of what they told me to enact back in July.
Yeah, I'm tracking. Thank you.
And really, by my understanding, they approved this back in July, and the reason it didn't come last month into September is they hadn't actually sent down the sheet to report it this way. But we had verified that the total number of salaries did work within the total allotted dollars. And I'm not gonna work this up for them, I wanted the libraries to work it up, and it didn't make it in time for the committee last month. Plus, you had a large agenda last month, probably wasn't the best item.
Well, this one's even bigger.
Yeah, but this is back in August, and it wasn't really.
Mr. Becker, I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just kidding, but, so, help me understand, make sure I understand, so this is within is this money within the, what I'll call the original budget, or this money is in what, an adjustment that was made to the budget?
They have the original budget. There was, the libraries in the original budget, when they started looking at, there was 3 sets of administration.
Mhm.
There was the director for each library, the executive director, and I believe they were called managers. So there was a concern, so they came back and they reworked the structuring. They went back to the salary survey, but that did not happen in time for the June 30, 2022 fiscal year budget. So the salary survey was completed at the very tail end of the budget. So they came back, and if you remember in July, there was a resolution that came by, and I think Election Commission was affected, libraries, a couple of other
This
ones.
long of a list.
There's a long list of adjustments that was made. That's the ones that came through the Budget Committee in July. At the time, the library seen them, and they had a couple of concerns. One, they had done the consolidation, and nothing had been accounted for additional duties. And then the other one that actually mentioned, didn't mention that, but in the minutes also, was the library, percentage-wise, had the largest number of part-time employees of any department, and part-time employees weren't included, so they wanted to move part of the money to part-time. After a fairly lengthy discussion, the conclusion of the committee was for the library board to go back to HR and work out what is reasonable for these raises as far as the additional duties.
Let me interrupt you. Was this included in the original budget?
It was with the amendments, the two together.
Okay, so this is the amended budget. So,
The amended budget, yes,
So,
sir.
but currently, this is within the
Yes, it's within the
official
amended budget, yes, sir. But they actually went and worked out, through HR, what was considered, and I think they worked with the salary consultant too, what would be considered reasonable for the additional duties and adjusting for part-time versus full-time. They sent these back to me, I believe, probably the original verification in July. But the actual resolution did not receive a 2/3 vote, it received a simple majority in July. In August, it was actually, during the budget committee, pulled back off of the agenda, or they were planning to, but then on the actual floor, they actually voted it back in. They voted, you remember it was voted back in on the August.
So, question, I believe, I could go back and look, that I voted against adding this to the budget, but it got added to the budget, so
Right.
that's a moot point right now. But I am curious if this increase was amended, here in the past couple months, like, why are we now having to do a bunch of these transfers? Why wasn't this included in their original amended request.
The original amended request in July was the one based on where none of the additional duties or the part-time employees were accounted for. So the July request that went to the commission in July and ultimately got approved in August, it came through originally in July, didn't receive two-thirds votes and got approved in August. That was the one that was originally calculated based on the amended one. They came to the budget committee in July and asked if they could make changes to that. So what was approved was line item based on the original, and there was changes made afterwards. And since there wasn't time to change the resolution, what the budget committee's ultimate decision was to send it back to HR and have them do two things. One, get with the salary consultant to determine for the additional duties and the part-time. And then number two, report them back to me. And I was instructed by the budget committee, if it was within budget, total, then just report it back to them only. It was basically approved. That's what it transpired. It was done in July, but then because of the two-thirds vote, and then the raises were ultimately sent down in August based upon the resolution being approved. And the budget committee, if it was within the total, told me to report back to them.
So looking at this page right here,
Yes, sir.
you said that the salary's already been adjusted.
Yes, sir.
Left column or right column?
To the right column.
So the right column is what the salary is.
Yes.
So if we're removing this money from the left column, this librarian is already not getting that money.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're
So,
adjusted to the ones that's in
my
charge.
opinion is we're ready to vote yes on this. So
Or it's really just a report. That's kind of mine. My understanding is they actually
call for the question.
approved this back in July.
Okay.
we get a call in a second.
You gotta take a vote, but
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take a vote. Okay,
On the call.
yeah. All right, well, we'll take a vote on the call then. Or we can, so vote on the call with question. All in favor, say aye. All-
no.
All against, no. I'm also a no, but the ayes have it. Okay, well, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving this, actually, I think we will probably want to cover this vote. So, all in favor of this?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
You need a motion.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm a little confused about what you're approving.
Well, we're gonna take a motion to, make a motion to approve it.
No, that's what I'm asking, if it's just a report from Dave about what's already done. are we
But I'm
approving?
not sure that this is a report. I think we have,
See, that's mine. They told me in July to bring it back as a report that they kind of enacted it, but that's kind of where I'm saying we usually don't do things in this order, but it's,
no, that's right, we shouldn't.
and there was a large discussion on my part about us doing it and.
So let me ask then, do we need a vote to approve this?
Point of order.
I would say no.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
According to our new rules,
Sorry.
somebody can't get in the queue and make a motion and call point of order, call the question. And so therefore that motion would be out of order.
Okay,
Say that again?
According to our new rules, you can't get in the queue, I don't know how that applies to committees, but, and make them, you can't basically gain the floor to talk and then call for the question after you get to talk.
Okay.
So-
Which I didn't do, but I understand what you're saying, but that wasn't what happened.
I mean, you ask questions, and I wanted to ask a question, but you called for the question after you got to ask everything, and we took a vote and cut off debate. I mean, I'm just saying, that's what our new rules
Yeah,
say.
but that wasn't,
You said,
I wasn't in the
I
middle
guess we're
of,
ready to vote yes, that's what you said.
I wasn't finished, I didn't make comments and then call a question, which is what you're referring to.
well,
I mean, you talked, yeah,
I'll
with Dave.
I'll entertain a motion then. I mean, I'm not sure if I can do this or not. I'll have to get some help still. I'm still learning, but, to make a motion to continue discussion.
As the chair, it's your call.
I mean, here's, I've got a question here. One, do we need to vote on this or not?
Here's my original intent. They, by my feeling, approved this back in July. But my original intent was, after they approved it in July, if it had went all the way through the commission, was to come back in August and ask them to, for a better word, bless it or approve it anyway. But now we went through to a new committee September and October because I got the sheets too late in September to get down here.
So, I mean, that sounds like we don't.
I don't think so. That's the way it was voted. It
Then we don't-
wasn't,
Yeah.
because that was the whole discussion with the other committee, we did bring it back and report.
So,
But I've never done it in that order, and that's why I had a lot of concerns and reservations when we did it.
so I don't know that we need a vote. I agree with you that was done, and I think Mr. Becker made several points that show that it was done in an inappropriate order, but that is the past. I don't think this needs a vote. Do you have any objection to that? No. Okay, so let's go ahead and move. Go ahead, next item.
The next one is, I'm just making sure, we have a resolution back, I believe it's actually Resolution 161209, back on 19th of December 2016. And if everybody's had a chance to read it, that really any item going through this committee, other than pass-through, requires it to be read twice or an unanimous decision to override the rules. And it also gives some verbiage about an emergency. My question is, do you guys want to continue to follow that rule?
Entertain a motion to approve this. So we're in discussion.
Probably just consensus to continue to follow it, the resolution's already passed.
I'll move for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay.
So, I guess I have a question about this one. So one of the things in our new rules that was a kind of a misnomer from this, I think, and misapplied was there were a lot of things that went through the budget process and the commission process that failed to really kind of slow the process down on spending some stuff. And so now there's clarity in the rules that not to be able to just pass it unanimously and without a heavier, I guess, burden to pass something through. So, just pulling my notes, apologize. I'm just questioning.
Are you asking if this is redundant against
Well-
the new rules?
Well, I'm just asking if we want to do that as far as like, I like the idea of slowing down the process for requesting new money. And so versus just approving unanimously and doing it faster. So that's my only question as far as this policy personally. I guess I'm kind of against this. You're just having a little problem with that, so I'm just trying to find out where it was we had it in the new rules.
Jeremy, while you're looking for that, could I interject?
Absolutely, go
ahead.
Was this part of this particular commission's procedures?
They just approved as a
Just a resolution.
separate resolution, but if your rules and procedures are later in their resolution and I guess they have verbiage that conflicting resolutions are gone, then really this one would be gone anyway, but this is more at the committee level, so it's not really affecting, unless the rules of the commission are speaking about the committee.
Right now, the rules say any resolutions appropriating or expending any funds which were not included in the adopted budget for the current fiscal year shall require approval by the commission on readings at 2 meetings on 2 different dates. However, approval by 2/3 majority by the commission on the first reading shall waive the requirement of the second reading. So I guess that's how we have it now.
Yeah.
So I guess that's still in this, I guess, in the spirit of what this is doing.
It's very similar thing.
But this one's the committee sending it on versus the commission. But this is actually making it to the commission, though yours is when it gets to the commission.
Correct. So this basically is just for this committee only, not.
So they're not in conflict, and that's,
No.
so what you're saying is, this is a stopgap for the committee, and it's very similar in.
And our rules have stopped, because I was just making sure that there was,
That
we're
they're
not.
in,
Yeah.
So basically, anything over 5,000 is not a flow through an emergency. If you want it to go through at the first reading, the way you want to have so many items, after you've looked at it thoroughly, then you really need to vote unanimously as a whole group to override the rules, or we put it back under old business next month for the second time. That's kind of the way, when there's some flow throughs and stuff that it doesn't go around, but.
Is there any more, Mr. Mansfield?
No.
Any more questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I think Mr. Mansfield has the rules brought up. Is there a dollar amount on that rules, or is it just?
It was just, no, this just says any resolutions appropriating or expending any funds which were not included in the adopted budget for the current fiscal year shall require approval by the commission on readings at 2 meetings unless there's a 2/3 majority vote of the commission on the first reading. It's gonna waive the requirement of a second reading. And I can understand if there's an emergency, I mean, that's obviously a fail-safe for the roof gets torn off by tornado or whatever. I mean,
But
we
one
gotta-
question for Jeremy here on, if you look down here, this may be the only thing it says, and the matter cannot be placed on the consent agenda, but must be considered on the regular agenda of the commission. Is that gonna conflict? That's the only place I could think that it could conflict, but I can't remember on the rules.
Well,
It just wouldn't allow it to be on the consent agenda
and I'm fine with that, for sure. So, I mean, I think that's a good thing.
if
If
it's
it goes,
overrode with the one vote. But in other words, if it has one vote here.
You can't get put on the
It can't be
consent.
consent on the agenda, it has to be
That's
separate on the
There's
main.
really no concern about anything being on the regular agenda instead of the consent agenda. The only concern is the other way around.
Okay. That's where it says something about what the commission shall do versus this committee, really.
Any other questions?
So, on the rules thing, so even if it's $1, it's gotta go through 2 meetings.
unless we have a 2/3
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
That's a separate.
That just
That's
basically,
separate.
anything outside of the budget.
No, I know.
Yeah.
That rule's been there actually quite a while,
Yeah.
that your appropriations require two-thirds vote or 2 votes.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep us on track, because we got a lot.
Yeah, I
That's
got you.
totally
It's
separate-
not a new
totally
rule.
separate thing. So, learning from the last one. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a vote here, or a motion, to approve this.
But I don't,
Or do we?
We've already done
whenever,
we need to?
do we need?
You just wanna follow, you've already got it, if you're gonna keep following it,
Yeah.
it should be fine.
It's just a-
Yeah, that's fine.
So the question is, when you have your votes now, I'll ask, do you wanna put it on the old agenda, or do you wanna
That's fine.
vote to override your rule?
Require a resolution to change.
Got it, okay.
I-
Mr. Lon?
Item C is just an email I've sent to all of you. It just explains how the chart of accounts worked. I think most of you saw that. It's rather long because we have a lot of accounts, but this is for your information. If anybody's got any questions, just email or call me and we can go into it with further details.
I do want to make one comment on that. if that's okay.
Go ahead.
When y'all look at this, you see the details in this. This is why you see budget adjustments, because it's really almost impossible for departments to get that finite with their items. So that's why you see budget adjustments come through where they have to move between line items, especially line items that have 0 in it.
And then the chart of account allows a lot of reporting that you do need. For instance, like the courthouse project, it has a project for 50020, so we can trace the bonds and everything together, or we can trace them individually. They're all necessary, but it does create some budget amendments. That is a true fact. And then item D is the parking garage. And I actually, in the packet, have the whole project, if anybody wants to see it, because it's involving bonds in multiple years. But my concern is one thing. Right now in the budget, based on what I was told and we confirmed, it was our understanding that the city of Gallatin was giving us $2.4 million and abating any fees. What I've learned recently, and is their understanding is that we're receiving 2.1 gross less any fees, which makes anywhere between $800,000 to $1 million worth of difference. At this point, we've been told because of, I think it was AT&T utility poles, that we're gonna get a lot of change orders, that we're gonna need this for the construction of the garage. I've looked through the contract, and the contract has some verbiage. As long as the architect signs off, I believe, and they can document it, I believe we're gonna have to pay it, and I think I've even went and talked to Ben, he concurs on my opinion too. So what I'm recommending tonight is I think this actually probably needs to be sent all the way back to general ops, for me to bring the entire budget to them and, let them look at the entire thing again, because right now, we're talking $700,000 or $800,000 more that you're potentially gonna need to meet that estimated budget right now from the county, if we leave the garage at the size it is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Let's have a quick question. I like that recommendation, but is it appropriate to send back guidance to the, from this body to the, general ops committee on here? Because I have some thoughts on this that, the mayor and I discussed.
It'd be appropriate if this body would, if this committee wants them to readjust the scope.
That's right.
If it is to just, whether or not to pay the additional funds, or that's.
No, it's
that's
about
my-
readjusting the
so
scope.
it- And, you know, general ops can look at how much it might cost to re-engineer and all of that, and if it actually saves money, or how much it saves, and they can look into that general ops.
So, I think I would like to make a motion here. And I would like to make a motion to, send guidance back to the, and I'll be specific about the guidance in a minute. Send guidance back to the, General Ops Committee, about changing of scope.
Second.
Okay. So, go ahead.
I had a question. So, let me understand, so are you saying the city of Gallatin is saying they're not gonna pay you close to $1 million? Or what are you-
This was my understanding. I was informed, there was a resolution for the county, I believe it was in July, or was it August?
It was August for $2.4 million.
2.4
That's
from the
what's
city
on
of
this-
Gallatin,
This
right.
transfer expenditure.
And $1 million from the county. My understanding at the time, I actually was told by a commissioner that they had agreed to the 2.4 million and the fees. I actually went to the mayor and he called an alderman and he said if they could confirm that they would cover the 2.4 million and abate the fees. I mentioned to the mayor that I had been waiting for what, John?
It's two different mayors.
I'm sorry, I came to the county mayor and I mentioned to him that we had this 2.4, that I didn't feel comfortable to give out any POs till we had some kind of documentation that they were gonna pay that. Mr. Isabel agreed with me that we did not need to give out any POs until we had documentation, and he went and requested documentation. The documentation that I've now received, based on their understanding and earlier, is it was going to be 1.5 originally minus the fees, and a $600,000 increase, which makes 2.1. And then also they have almost $500,000 worth of fees that they're not gonna abate, so you're gonna have to minus that off. When you add those up together right there, you're looking at $800,000 to $1 million.
What are the fees for?
Yeah, what are the fees for?
And they're in that packet. Can you hand those out, Ms. Allison?
They're the standard fees for the construction where they do the inspections.
Building
and all that.
Permit
That type of
fees.
thing.
But we actually have a
$500,000?
sheet of them, see them, we can give them to.
That's
No, it's
fine.
the one for
So,
the later.
Hold on, Mr. Becker.
We can give it to you.
I think I had the same question Mr. Mansfield had, but I'm not sure I understand what the answer was. So is Gallatin, sounds to me, from what I hear you say, is originally Gallatin said that they would pay the fee.
That's what I
And
was
then now Gallatin's saying they're not gonna pay.
told by multiple sources. That's what ended up on the resolution, yes.
Okay.
And now my understanding is they're saying 2.1 gross less the fees. We wanted 2.4 and then paid and not charging us for the fees. So the difference is the 300,000 plus the fees, and the fees are approaching
But it
$500,000.
boils down to Gallatin initially said one thing and now they're saying another.
That's what I was told. I was told by a commissioner and the mayor talked to an alderman.
But for the purpose of, sorry, Mr. Mansfield, I think you had a question.
well, yeah, I wasn't done earlier. So, so right now we're at 800,000 plus. You said something about AT&T and what's that?
The reason that they're saying right now that we think there's going to be a large change order for this particular project or the parking garage is that AT&T, they had an issue to get AT&T to move their poles.
So they didn't think to do that before they did the project?
Well, we had a.
Nobody asked?
This is kind of where we're going. We have a construction manager at risk that has an agreed upon amount. If you read the verbiage of their contract, it says if there's delays that cost them money beyond their control, which would be AT&T, then the cost goes back to us.
And they did spend several, I spoke to the project manager, and he said they spent months hounding AT&T, and AT&T just, oh, we're on it, we'll do it, it'll be done next week. And just like that.
People's quit.
It was just like that for.
It's drug on for
months.
They
months.
did all they could to get them to move those, just AT&T wasn't gonna do it until they were ready.
They found- apparently
So
they found out.
I agree with
And
that.
they brought equipment, and you gotta think if they got equipment or individuals, they only have a couple of choices, move it. And if they have a contract to buy something, they have nowhere to put it, and you're not gonna put, I don't know, millions of dollars worth of stuff and then move it again either. So they're gonna have to document it, but the question is, right now, we're told that they are saying there's a large change order to do with the AT&T delays. And we haven't got it in our hands yet.
And that's just, is that a penalty because of the delay, or?
That's gonna increase their cost because materials went up, or they had equipment that they had already mobilized and put there, and they only have a couple of choices, move it or leave it there. So
Did they know AT&T had to move this before they built this garage?
I'm assuming so. And we've actually got a consultant that can go to General Ops and talk to them about those particular issues. We've actually got one that's running the project.
So, what I'm hearing here is two things.
I would assume so.
On net, we've got between $800,000 and $1.1 million shortfall,
That's what I
And-
think.
and a potential increase
That's-
that we don't know.
The increase we think's coming, and it was in the estimates. So the increase we've estimated for, the
Okay.
real issue right now is 800,000 to $1 million. But as I'm saying, I'm doing the financing and somebody else is running the project.
Got it.
That's why I'm not trying to not give you the answers, but we've got a consultant that could go to General Ops and answer those questions.
Mr. Becker?
So the motion here is send it back with adjustment of scope. So I'm assuming that means to take 800,000 to $1 million out of the parking garage.
I've got a thought here.
I mean, I'm asking what is, yeah, what is.
And this is what, the county mayor and I discussed, and I think it's a good course of action. And that is, to send this back to, the General Ops Committee with the recommendation to adjust scope down such that, we assume we're not getting anything from Gallatin, and we make this a county building only. And so we have two proposals. One is a county building only that we can fund ourselves, that appropriately scoped. And another is, for, the original, and we can then, have some discussion with the city of Gallatin that we can go one or two ways here. We can have with what we all understood to be, at least what we understood to be the original scope with the full investment by both parties, or we can have a county building. Go ahead.
So how much money does Gallatin currently agree that they're gonna pay on this parking garage?
There's, what I seen was a 1.5 and a 600,000. That would be 2.1. What we were told is 2.4, and they abated the fees, is what I was told,
Which are $500,000.
which is about a half a
So
million this year.
they're currently saying they'll pay 2.1.
Right, so if you really look at the difference, you're looking near $1 million. So what you're really looking to scope is probably remove all the stuff for parking spaces for Gallatin and see if that covers the 2.4 plus the additional fees you'll have to cover, plus any additional.
And for the parking garage itself, refresh my memory, like the total was somewhere around
$9 to $12 million was the original scope.
Originally, no, wasn't quite that much.
So Gallatin was gonna chip in 2.1 to 2.4 or whatever.
We can, let me get you the original
Yes.
numbers
They
here.
say 2.1. So if it's, let's just say it's 10 minus 2, so now basically instead of I think it is 12, but instead of a 12, it's now a $10 million garage,
The original
is
was,
what you were thinking.
the original scope of the parking garage was $9 million for construction, and I think it was, let me find the design cost over
We
there.
added $3 million to it.
We
And-
did, it's going up.
Right, and $450,000 for design. Earlier, $409,000 was added out of the contingency, because there were some contingency funds. And then now the county has agreed for another $1 million, and then also added in the 2.4 for Gallatin, because it was never shown in the original.
So that's where it gets up to 12.
Yeah, so we're thinking, $13 million, plus the fees may be
I
closer.
mean, if my opinion, Gallatin told us one thing, now they're telling us something different. I'm in agreement with sending this back to Gen Ops to rescope.
As I say, I have all the documentation here, but I think it's more something Gen Ops would probably
We got
want
a
to look
couple
at.
of questions. Go ahead.
Is this parking structure intended to be like the Franklin one where it's free to everybody? It doesn't cost to go into it. So Gallatin would be getting a great benefit
Yes.
by having this parking structure here that they don't want to pay even 20% of.
I suspect they would need to build one in the next 10 years if this one wasn't.
Yeah, I agree we should play hardball.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and just understand on those fees, that's a fluid number. They're still increasing.
The five to $500,000?
Yeah, that's not over, because they're still having to do inspections as they complete the Justice Center,
And keep scoping it down.
so. And the goal is to have both of them open at the same
41.
time, so we really need to reach an agreement with Gallatin.
Mr. Master.
I would assume they're just gonna go
Go to
through
Mr.
it.
Well, my question is, if we send this back to general ops, and I'm not against that, but if we do, and then we re-scope it, there is a plan review fee in here for $173,000 almost. Do we incur another plan review fee?
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just getting at, you don't wanna throw good money after bad.
And I think these costs here, part of these actually are even related back to when they did the jail pod. So if you look at all the costs, those are several fees that they've not charged us for, that they're wanting to take back against the, amount they're gonna give us.
I think didn't we spend like $6.4 or $6.6 million for this, the managing this project and the.
It was managing and design of the courthouse. We spent.
What about, did that include the parking garage, didn't it? I thought-
Well, the parking garage was another $450,000 for its.
For to manage that portion of it.
You mean design?
Design, okay.
Yeah. But the whole management slash main design was through JPA, and it was another 5.7, and
So that's like almost $12 million for the design and management for the architecture fees and for all these things.
I'm saying with this and the jail pod and the other things, with the county and city, it's about a $104 million project. It's a large project.
I knew that, but I was just trying to figure out on the.
There's a 5.7, and the 5.7 was for the, I guess, design, management, and engineering of that building. And then you have there's actually some land involved in that too, that we had to purchase for the garage.
I'm very aware of that one.
It was
The
691,260 for land for the parking garage, and then we spent, I think it was another
$850,000.
$865 for the land for the courthouse.
That we used to own, that we sold and then bought back more expensive.
I
But,
think we've got, I mean.
So my question though is like with this
1.5
parking
million.
garage, I guess it might be for general ops, so I'll save it for general ops.
But that's what I'm saying, when general ops, you can invite your consultant that's working on that.
Got a motion, got a
That works for
second.
you guys, and he'll have more details than I do on this.
All right, so, did you have any other notes, Mr. Mayor? Okay. So we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion here? All right, I'd like to take that vote to send this back just to be clear for what this is, send this back to general ops with the specific guidance to study that I just laid out. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in the negative? Motion passes unanimously. All righty, Mr. Long?
Number E is just a summary for the ARPA, because I've been asked a lot of questions, and I'll give everybody just a second to get there, and then I'll go over this summary. It'll be,
Page 58.
it's on page 58. Okay. If you look at the very first, there's 37,154,480. That is your total amount of the ARPA funds that we are due to receive. Of that 37, there's $10 million that's called revenue replacement that is much less restricted. The other 27.1 million is the very restricted funds. If you go down the amount 1 and 2 is just more or less for internal times and when these were approved, and that's how we're keeping up with them. But if you go down each line item, that is the current projected amount to be spent on each line item. If we continue the salary supplements until December 31st, 2024, using the decreased plan, it's going to take about $10.4 million, give or take. There was a plan approved for broadbands for 10 million, water lines for, 5 million for broadbands, 10 million for water lines. And then we have a PO out for the consultants that's doing this for $473,480. They include your subrecipient monitoring, because if we're going to do the water line or broadbands, there'll be subrecipient monitoring and engineering, so that's quite a project. There's another $500,000 for administrative costs. We don't anticipate you're going to need that. That is if you came up with some kind of a revenue, low-income project or something very complicated that was in there originally in the budget. And then the 1.5 for election machines, that was covered through the state through HAVA, so it's no longer needed. It can be used for other items. Miss actually found us some money for that. So it's available now. And then these are the rest of the projects that's been approved or discussed. And then I put some notes. I won't go through the rest of it any more details, but on the right, that shows which ones we were anticipating taking out of the revenue replacement.
I apologize. What's the difference in amount one and amount two?
They're just for internal. It's based on, like, if you look on, for instance, on amount one, that's the amount we spent in fiscal year 2022 and the amount we budgeted in 23. So I just kind of keep a breakdown for myself. And then that's the amount two would be the estimates for what's left. And then I kind of kept a running total. Amount one on broadbands was approved back in 22 and carried over. Water lines was approved, but they said 5 million in 22 and 5 million in 23 for a total of 10. So I try to kind of break out where they came, but it's more or less just for internal to keep up with where they're sitting right now. And I know a lot of these projects are changed, but this just shows you the original plan to give you an idea where you're at.
So is all $37 million earmarked already, or where is it?
Yes and no. The 500,000 we don't think you're going to need to use. The election machines no longer. The health department EMS and maintenance facility and the economic development's under discussion. And then I don't know, since the original request, if there's been a whole lot of discussion on the Hollows Drainage Improvement Project. I haven't heard a lot on it either. So there was earmarking on these, but I'm saying these projects, several of these aren't completed or they're still, I guess, a work in progress.
What, did you have there? I guess what may be helpful, Mr. Warren, first off, thanks for putting this together, it's helpful. What may be, I think, useful to your point here is to break out what is still either under discussion or canceled, with the election machines being the latter.
Yeah, the election machine's canceled. The 500,000 above it, we don't think you're gonna need, so we think it's canceled. The health department, EMS and maintenance and economic development's all of them you have under your old business right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
The 750, I don't know, it was a request, it was through, I believe, planning for the Apollo's Drainage Improvement Project. I believe there's some flooding in several subdivisions, and this actually,
I think that,
can be used for that.
Mr. Beckman, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the general question is, what you're trying to get at is just understanding what is either may still be available or is under discussion in just kind of a clean, visible way. I mean, it could just be like additional tabs or, not tabs, lines at the bottom or over to the right.
We'll try to get you
column.
something for next month.
Yeah,
if it'll
not,
help.
nothing for now, I don't.
Right.
Go ahead.
Just so, for general ops, the health department, that's the one that in Hendersonville?
Yes.
And that's
And it's back under your old business, and I've actually got the 100, plus it shows how much we spent so far. I put the sheet behind there showing you more
Oh,
details.
okay, and EMS,
That's the EMS facility.
Proposed building next to Shackle Island.
Chevron.
And
oh,
it's under,
Shackle Island,
Yeah.
okay.
and it's under old business also, and I have your expenditure report and the amount you spent on your POs and what. There's more details back in here for those.
And then maintenance is airport.
No, that's the
That's the maintenance.
collective maintenance facility.
Maintenance facility. That's the 3.4.
That's the one we've been talking about.
Yeah, the one on airport,
Airport, yes.
Yeah,
sir.
okay.
yeah.
And then the 1560 is the Forward Sumner project. It's still
Yeah.
under old
Yeah,
business
and
also.
I think we had an ask in to move that one more month, so that.
So those four items are under old business for discussion. The two items above that are not really needed at this point. And then the 50,000 for highway is something they agreed to give, but nothing's really been agreed to. Ashley's place has already been expended, and the Long Hollow drainage is just been discussed, but I don't know if this committee wishes to move on or how they wish to move with it.
Is that a general ops thing?
The Long Hollow drainage, it could be sent back to general ops.
What is that?
I don't know.
My understanding, there was some flooding in a subdivision down Long Hollow, and that's to look to trying to correct part of that issue.
Like ditching by the roads, because we can't go on a private property to solve flooding, so I'm guessing that's just.
If there are these kind of questions, it sounds like it needs to go back.
I think this one needs to go back to general ops. It was a request in the 23 budget,
I guess.
and it was to do with some flooding, is what I was told, down on Long Hollow, and they want to do a project. Generally, we can't, but under this grant, there was some, and you can look at it with them, Ben, there's a little bit of difference on this one.
All right.
But it's something that probably needs to be going to general ops if it wants to be scoped or not, and see if even the 750 is reasonable.
I make a motion to send the Hollows Drainage Improvement Project back to general ops.
Any, I got the second one. Any other point of discussion on this?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Since you guys weren't involved in the broadband or the water line, and there's a lot of information out there, and you're trying to get up to speed, would you maybe want to send that back to general ops, let that committee get up to speed and where these projects are?
The water lines definitely.
The water line and the
I would
broadband.
Amend my motion to include the water lines and broadband.
Let you get up to speed.
Second. Any discussion on that? All right, go ahead and take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
You said you're moving the 1.56 in economic development to
That's
next
going-
month.
that's- Yeah, that's an old business.
Deferring that
It's
to
gonna go to old
November.
business, yep, next month. Any other notes on this one?
That's it, Mr. Chairman. And my next two items are pretty easy. The next one is actually a cash flow analysis of the highway. Because of timing, it's not been updated from last month. And then the other is just a financial statement memo for the commission to inform them their financial statements are available on the website, and anyone that would like a copy, we will provide one. And I just ask for a vote to send those two items to be docketed to the commission.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Ms. Long, you want to report?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So moving to old business here. I'd like to, if possible, kind of move through these relatively quickly. I believe that. I like that. You like my optimism?
I attached your expenditure reports behind each one to tell you where you're
Got
at.
it.
We still have 5 more hours left in this day. Sure you want
Not use them.
4 hours and 50 minutes.
Is there?
The carryover, we actually have IT here to discuss their carryover project.
Okay.
And the generators, I'm able to discuss that one too.
All right, hold on just a second. So
We're on A. An
we're
old
on A,
business.
let's do A. So is it any movement to?
Make a motion to
make
send back to
motion
general ops.
Okay, got it. Need a second.
Second.
All in favor? Or any
What's the
discussion?
motion?
A motion to send, reconsider the health department to, general ops.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Okay.
Or
Oh,
I made the
you-
motion. I made the motion.
made the
You
motion.
seconded it.
Second.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
Any more discussion on any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, motion passed unanimously. Okay, I think we can move on to item B here, EMS building.
I make a motion to send it back to general ops.
Second.
Is that second? All right, we got a second from Mr. Smith.
You're loading
Any
my
discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passed unanimously.
Need to run a
We're
tight
going good
ship.
here.
Do you want to send that to the
Purchase
general
of
ops
the,
to get count?
AEDs.
To get council, those you want to send to the general ops to get counts for the buildings? Your IED,
To get what?
the AEDs, to get counts for the buildings, that's why it's not anywhere, it's waiting to see how many you need.
Okay, yeah.
Send it to general ops, they maybe could get a count for the buildings.
I think that'd be a good thing.
What's the motion?
Well, he was just purchasing the AEDs, asking a question, so, I moved for discussion.
Okay,
If I get a second,
Second.
all right, we have a second. Floor is open.
take a vote.
Yeah, I guess we do need to take a vote.
Well,
Well, wait, let's take a vote.
we're gonna take discussion.
Okay, yeah.
So, all in favor of discussion for, item,
C.
C?
See,
Aye.
Favor, please say aye.
You
Aye.
don't have to vote either, you just have to have a motion and a second on the floor for discussion. You don't have to
All right,
vote.
that's fine.
So that's fine. So, floor is
So,
open.
you're suggest, like, originally, obviously, this is for like 100 units. Don't know, I know, we have like 48 sheriff cars, I believe. Sheriff can correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, it was just, you know what this is born out of, so I guess it's just figuring out that we want to scope this down to only be for sheriff vehicles or vehicles that don't have, you know, first responders to be able to adequately treat patients, or do we want to just keep it the scope the same as is and put it in county buildings?
Mr. Sheriff?
So we have 55 cars that actually work the road.
Okay.
So 55.
We have 150 cars, but we have 55 that actually patrol the roads. So if that's what the number you were asking for.
Yeah, whatever that actual,
Because, I mean, we have 52 in schools, we have, so, I mean, I think that's where you would want it.
correct, absolutely, that was the intent, but it's, I guess, I make a motion, I guess, send it back to the ops to discover, like, you know, the scope of buildings that we could use it, or any other deficiencies. we got.
Because isn't there ambulance issues and
Well, the ambulances have them, but if we, I mean, I know we could, if we wanted to, we could put them in volunteer fire department vehicles or.
So what it is in this case, it was a time issue. We arrived on the scene, 18 minutes, is that correct?
That the CPR was being done?
18 minutes, I think, before the ambulance got there.
Yeah, and he was there like 2 minutes at most.
And so that was why this was brought up in discussion. It was just a time lapse, so we got there before, and we didn't have one in the car.
So what you're suggesting is to systematically have solved for that problem, is the 55?
Yes, sir.
And
Well,
what
my
you're
motion,
suggesting is
I got an estimate for 100,
Okay,
just for grins. I
Got
mean,
it.
just, so that just, if that overshot a little bit, so it's like, it's $150,000, at least it was, back in May.
so is your motion to send it back to?
Which, if that was, David recommended that, because
Well,
we
if they need to
discussed.
count for the
how many
buildings, of how many buildings.
Yeah,
they-
no,
Do we
I
need,
get
it's
it.
like if we wanted to
I
look
get
at
it.
buildings, or if there's, if we're missing those types of things. And
Yeah.
since we've got a quote for this, or at least initial quote.
There was a discussion at the last one about buildings that possibly did not have
Right.
in them.
But the goal is for deputies, because I mean, you know,
Got it.
cars that don't have it, because they are the first line of defense, you
Yeah.
know, in many places.
So your motion then is to send it back for that additional, the 45?
To see if it's
See
necessary.
If it's
yeah.
necessary.
Well, we would have, at general ops, we would have to go through EMS
Yeah.
and everybody to see who really needs them.
Yeah.
And we would have to make a decision based on money.
Go ahead.
Do we know if this quote, is there a price point, like reaching 100, that we get
We'll
a
have to,
discount?
we'll have to bid them anyway.
It's a,
What?
They'll have to be, once we determine the number, we'll go out and bid them for you. So these will have to be bid because.
This was just
My thought was potentially go ahead and getting them for the 55 vehicles and then circle back around. Because it sounds like if it's gonna take another month or two cycle to figure out,
I'd be
So,
fine
you
with
know.
scoping that down for immediately.
Yeah, so that would,
Okay, so we have a motion on the table.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna retract my
All
motion,
right.
and you may- somebody make a
So
second.
I'll take a motion, if you've retracted then I'll make a motion to approve 55 of the AEDs and then send direction to general ops to determine how many additional ones we needed after that.
Yeah.
All right.
You want us to go ahead and bid the 55?
I
Yes.
proceed with the 55.
So we have a second, floor is open, Mr. Mayor.
Well, just to let you know that we have to bid for 55, we're not buying 55
Mhm.
through that price, that was just an estimate. So there will be a little time lag.
So since it takes two readings on an appropriation, do you want to go ahead and this month approve up to the cost of 55? We go out and bid it and see if we can have it back for next month. Then you can do your second reading, you would make it onto the commission the next month.
That's your motion.
Okay.
That sounds good. So yeah, so I'm up to, what did you say, up to 55?
Or we'll go out and we'll bid for 55. We'll bring you back an actual hard bid next month. So this month, just approve appropriation up to the bidded cost for 55.
Yeah.
With no amount, that way you get your first reading in.
Yeah.
Next month, we'll bring your actual, and you get your
Get the
second
second
reading
reading in.
and send it on
That
up to
makes
be paid
sense.
from, say, capital projects. That's the
Got it.
place we have money.
Dave, would this make sense to go ahead and put in that, like, a higher number and say like up to that
We
way?
will.
If they, okay.
We'll
That
put a
way they
minimum of
approve more later, but
55 and
without a new bid.
a maximum of 120.
Got it. That
That's
makes
probably
sense.
what we'll put, and then the minimum 55 after, I don't think, and probably we'll contact, if it's okay, Mr. Miller to make sure that
We
we're
have a
all,
question back in the back.
because he's our medical
Yeah, I was
person.
just gonna make the recommendation, if you're gonna bid it, I brought this up to Commissioner Mansfield before. It's gonna be a big savings to the county if you'll bid, I know it's gonna be a sole source, but bid the Zoll brand that we've already quoted, because that is the monitors that we carry.
Okay,
The reason I say that is if these deputies deploy AED in the field, then we can give them a new set of pads back, plug their pads that were already on the patient into our monitor, everything is
Compatible, it's
accessible,
interchangeable.
and it cuts the cost in half, whereas if it's another brand such as Physio Control or Philips or anything else,
And every time it's deployed, that's a set of pads, they're about $100 a set. And then the EMS ambulance would use a set, so it will save money, plus we already have those in our system. We help maintain those.
Well, we'll be absolved more.
And they're
This
good
morning-
That's what the sheriff already
Yes,
said.
Just
Far
one,
from being
one,
obsolete.
When you open it up, it tells you every step to take. And it tells you actually if you need to deploy the shop.
We can bid
It's a
Zoll
res-
only.
You're bidding, but it's a resale.
My question
right?
is more than one person sell Zoll or Zoll only sell direct, or do you know?
Well, Zoll sells their own product, and that's gonna, they're
And
gonna,
they only sell theirs, or do they do resellers too?
Okay.
We'll look at it. Either way, we'll go through and determine if sole source or we'll bid it Zoll only because of the cost savings and the compatibility. But either way, I would recommend to do your first bid your first approval for 55 and going to general ops. That way you get your first reading out and then we'll bring back actual next month. We'll go ahead and bid it.
Your motion.
We'll bid it or get a quote. We'll bid it or get a quote, whatever's required.
So we got a motion and a
Second.
second. Any more discussion?
Bid or quote, whatever's required.
Okay, good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay. Item D, 2022 salary lines over budget. Mr. Long, any thoughts on that?
Last year, we had a couple that was over the budget. My corrective action plan, because we're still required to pay those, was I would report any amounts to the budget committee. If you look on page 70, there was a few immaterial overages. And these were because these were late year payments, not enough time to adjust the budget.
Yeah.
They're immaterial, but my corrective action plan was to report it to the budget committee, so I'm following my
All
corrective
right,
action
got
plan.
it. I'll entertain a motion to pass this. Okay, can we get a second? Got a second from Mr. Brown. Any discussion on item D? It's page 68. If you wanna see the numbers, they're pretty small.
Yeah, they are.
And you gotta think, like EMS, they have overtime all the way through June 30th, so we estimated, we missed about $5,000 under, could've went either direction.
Any discussion on this? Okay, we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. All righty.
One thing to tell you about the uncollectible receivables, the school department paid us October 4th for their $42,000 for their radios. So the only one I hadn't paid right now for the radios is the highway, but we still haven't heard anything on any of the reappraisal receivables.
That's a lot of money.
I remember
Yeah,
this-
I'm gonna make, well, go ahead, you wanna make a motion?
Oh, like, if you wanna make a motion.
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna make a motion, just to, I'll make a motion to approve this discussion.
Second. So, I remember the,
This is for, uncollected material receivables, it's page
Yeah, I'm looking at
71.
71.
Yeah.
So like, Hendersonville owes us $226,000?
yeah, for,
Yeah,
so, Mr. Mayor, can you expound on this one for us?
Yeah, let me, by law, the cities have to participate in municipal cost share for reappraisal. And so they have to pay a prorated share based on their parcel count. And that's where this calculation comes in. What we did, fiscal year 2021, we combined the budgets because we no longer get reappraisal grants. And the reality is the reappraisal cycle involves all aspects of the assessor's office. There is no separation between reappraisal budget and appraisal budget. So we put that together. And that's what, I sent them a letter, said be prepared that we're combining the budgets to make a truer reflection of the reappraisal cost, and told them there was an estimate of what it may be. Some of the cities paid, these cities opted not to. They have an attorney with MTAS who is giving some opinion that there are separate costs. They haven't identified what those are. I wrote the presentation for CTAS on this, and these are funds that they owe.
So what,
And-
go ahead.
what action are we
Yeah.
considering now?
What's the resolution?
Well, as the assessor, we have no no teeth in it. It's all would be based on your committee, the law office, however y'all want to do that. We cannot withdraw services if they don't pay.
So they owe us this money that they're not willing to pay? Are they contesting this amount?
They are contesting it based on an opinion from MTAS.
So are they gonna protest it again next year and not pay the same amount? Excuse me, in that 2 years in 2024?
I would venture a guess so, as long as they can, as long as they don't have to pay it.
Isn't it basically that they're arguing that you would have done the appraisals anyway, so if there's not a separate, like,
That's part of the argument that we're gonna do that, but that's not what the law says. The law is very clear, that they pay it.
They're not wanting to argue with his calculation, they're wanting to argue what items should be included in the calculation. They're saying the statutes isn't clear. When they talked to CTAS and the former law director, she agreed with the assessor that it is clear, or the former assessor, the mayor.
So are they wanting to pay zero, or there's some amount lower than this?
They don't want to pay anything.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's what they're, I mean, that's with most people.
Well, so, I mean, sorry, did I cut off question? This is just a comment. I mean, this feels to me like a gambit, right? Like, if they're not gonna do it unless we do something about it. It's the only recourse that we have to sue.
basically, and then you're looking at how much you're willing to spend on litigation for how much you might get back, because this
Can you
may
give
be
us
the.
that estimate? Can you come up with that?
There's another possibility. You could urge the state legislators to clear up that statute. That you guys are, you and the skiddies together and make clear what items are included in there.
Mr. Mansfield?
so with this amount, I guess we couldn't say, hey, Gallatin, you owe us another $200,000 almost. Put that on your tab or take it away from something else. I mean, I guess we probably couldn't do that. I'd assume I wouldn't. I mean,
Starts to get
Yeah,
complicated.
and I'm just questioning.
I mean, settlements are a thing. If we went to these cities and say, we believe this is what you owe, and they say some number that I'm sure is not a quarter of this, maybe somewhere in the middle that gets met and everyone walks away not too happy, but more happy.
So on the civilian side and things like this, or private side, sorry, my military's getting into me, but, the first thing that happens before litigation, you tend to get kind of a nasty note from a lawyer. Can you write a nasty note?
We can do that.
I mean, is that applicable, like a formal notice? Is that, go ahead.
What did they say in 2020? Did they pay?
No, it's from 2019, the last
Or-
one.
okay, or
They
2000.
pay 2020, yeah. They pay 2020, 19, and all the years before.
So they've never had a problem paying it till
Until we
221.
combine the budgets, which increased the amount. Because when we combined the budgets, because we no longer got reappraisal grants, that got cut out years ago. And I did presentations across the state on this, and I'll be happy to bring the PowerPoint in and show y'all, explain the law.
see that.
And if you want to punt this till next month, I'll be happy to bring in a presentation. But the law says outside of an agreement, if you have a specified agreement with them, it will override the municipal share. The share is 50-50.
I think the PowerPoint would be valuable because if we're going to make an assessment of this, or take action, we need to know what we're taking action.
Could ask the state legislators to put some teeth in there.
No, I'm just,
So,
And I've got an AG opinion that goes with it, and Department of Assessments opinion that goes with it.
Mr. Mayor, how recent have you had this discussion with these cities?
I don't discuss it with the cities. With this, the assessor's role was to calculate it, and we send it up to finance. Finance sent out the bill. We don't
send the bill.
collect.
So I guess.
So outside of, if they call me and ask me a question about it, I answer the question. But it wasn't the assessor's role to collect or.
No, I was talking about as your role as mayor. I'm like, like, does Hendersonville know that we want this money? Does Portland know we want $60,000 for 2021?
We sent them two bills.
Yeah, they do
Okay,
know
yeah,
that.
so how recent, has there been any verbal discussion?
I've not had a discussion with them as county mayor, no.
Have you, Mr. Loin, have you made any
We sent the bills out.
it seems like before we escalate,
Yeah.
like a,
Phone calls before it could be.
Yeah, I would, Mr. Mayor, if you could. you
As
could reach out to-
assessor, I asked to address the Council of Governments, and they never gave me the opportunity.
But
So I did ask to address the cities
Just
to
a
help.
question,
Mr. Brown.
what are we going after? I mean, is property tax?
500,
No,
About
what
a
is
million.
the item?
It's the services that the assessor of property delivers to the cities. We calculate their values, we give them the tax rolls.
Okay, so you calculate
Yeah.
what the city is
See,
going
they
to charge
can,
them.
they can
county
create
charges
their
them,
own
okay.
assessment department if
Yeah,
they wanted
but they
to, but
don't
it's,
have it.
it's more cost effective
Yeah.
for them to use the county.
They're getting a free service for something that
Understand
should be
well,
paid.
it's free now.
Did Westmoreland pay theirs?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead, Mr. That was your,
let's
okay.
have a discussion, like,
Oh, yeah,
Westmoreland, Mitchellville.
What's your motion?
I gotta say this before is there any more discussion, because I have one point, and I gotta say, I tend to agree with Mr. Becker here, before we escalate, somebody should call, I mean.
I'll be happy to
I'll
make
be
that
the
call.
bad guy, you'll be.
I'll be happy to call them all,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
Thanks,
so,
sir.
yeah, so with that in mind, we need,
let's keep this on, or move this old business for next
business.
month.
all right, yeah, all right.
Give a recommendation for the county mayor to
Do we need to?
reach out to the
I'll
cities.
I'll reach out to them, and I'll also, next month, I'll report back, and I'll bring a presentation in to show you on the
That's
TV,
fine.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
just so you
sir.
have a better understanding.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Could we just as easily, at the next assessment, withhold that?
We're not allowed to withhold services.
I already asked that, we're not
Yeah.
allowed to.
Okay.
That was what my
Yeah,
first
that-
thought
that was an
not to
obvious
give them the rights, not to give them the rights until they paid up.
You don't wanna pay, you
I was
don't
told we
get
couldn't
it.
legally do that.
Yeah.
we can do it with garages, we can't do it with,
Now, that was my very first question. Can you just hold it well, until they do it? They
okay.
pay pretty quick.
Move us down, item F.
Can we just defer that to next month? Because we have until December to actually approve a calendar. It's just trying to get early to give you guys time to work up your personal
That's-
calendars.
that's fine.
But it's on your agenda, so you can kind of look at the ideal.
That's fine. Moving on to G, budget carryovers.
Can I discuss a couple of them on that one?
Sure.
First, if you look, and it was talked about last month, the EMS does not have generators in 3 of their stations. We got the the bid back, and it was $113,320. He currently has $100,000 in his budget, and we have $24,562.03 under building improvements EMS station 113. If you look on page 76, I think the request right now is to take $13,320 and move that over to the generator line item, the way he can make the 3 purchases for his generators is the request from EMS.
And that is a good step down from the original bid that came in. Almost
We changed the
half.
specs. They
Yeah.
cut the specs back. I think the bidder kind of overspec'd
Oh,
us.
yes, he did.
He decided to take our specs and go way up.
130,000 savings.
Yeah, because he just decided to run wild on the specs.
So, I'll entertain a motion to move that 13,000 over for the purchase of these.
So moved.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor for the motion to move that 13,000 plus over to allow for this purchase, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
And
So we're
then-
not done here, though. Go ahead.
Then we have the IT, I guess the acting director right now, he's right back here, it's Robert. And there's 2 items here, if you look, there's 71,844 going to the right side, if you look on 76, the very first one, you go down to the second subtotal, 225,328.04, that is to create the off-site backup or a new off-site backup. And Robert's here to answer any questions. My understanding is they're gonna update the equipment and make it a true hot site, but he can give you a lot more details.
This will be a simultaneous site where all data done during the day here is immediately transferred over there. And that's done under the guidance we had our state auditor recommend this to us, and he certainly would like to see us get this done. In case of disaster, if, like today, we had tornado warning, if we have a storm, tornado, whatever, come through here, tear this building down, they expect us to have a building up with all of our information immediately ready to go, and that's what this will do.
It's gonna take us 3 or 4 days right now.
So, I got a quick question here. So, you're to back up pretty standard stuff. What are we actually, I guess 2 questions. One, what is actually being covered here? And are there any maintenance considerations over time that this is gonna cost?
That's the nimble storage.
Okay.
That will come with a 5-year warranty. Any type of, anything that goes wrong with that, that's automatically covered. We got a 4-hour turnaround for any parts that go down on any of our equipment.
So after that, we'd have to either replace it or.
Or renew the contract for the insurance, yes, sir.
How much is the contract for the insurance?
Well, we haven't had anything past that 5-year mark at this point, so I can't say.
The reason I say this is that 10 years ago, your curve on needing new equipment was very rapid because it would, the equipment will become obsolete or need to be replaced. But I don't know that is as much the case now as it used to be, just because speed times have finally overtaken and stayed ahead of processing needs. I mean, is that a true statement? I think it's a true statement across the board. Software needs just are no longer outpacing computational needs. So I guess what I'm getting at here is I'm trying to set conditions so that we don't continuously need a 200, I'm not saying this isn't needed, backup is important, but I wanna make sure that we don't continuously spend $250,000 for new equipment when, because of where technology is currently,
Right.
we wouldn't, so
And that's not our plan.
Okay.
This is a process that was started 2 years ago. And so
Okay.
we're just on the back end of trying to tie it back up and get it complete at this point.
So,
All equipment except for this and maybe some software licenses, this will be completely taken care of.
it's one time, at least for 5 years.
Several years, yeah. Because currently the Nimble will match the one we have here now. As you know, the courthouse is coming on board. We're looking at several terabytes of data coming in from that.
What are the specs for this? That's all.
It's 84 terabyte Nimble storage.
Okay.
That's our complete backup for everything. And that's exactly what we have upstairs here at the admin building, and this will be a direct duplication to our DR site. The one that we currently had was less than half of that storage size, so our thoughts are, if we take the old one over, it's gonna work, but we're gonna be back in within a year and a half talking about having to upgrade it.
Okay,
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
So this is hardware for data storage.
for backup.
And is it just the hardware? I mean, does this have to go in some sort of a waterproof building that we have to build?
We've
It's
already
going
got
around
that.
on one center.
Yeah, that's a hardened facility.
And the
Yes,
installation
on the airport.
is the installation covered in this, or?
Yes, this is something that was
End to
left
end.
out of the initial purchase that was going through.
This has been ongoing for a couple of years, and either way, even if we don't get the hot site, the stuff over there is aging, and we'll still have to have a backup where we can come up at a reasonable amount of time, so we're still gonna incur some of the same cost.
Define hot site.
Basically, when this one goes down, that one goes up very quickly, almost instantaneously. Right now, it would take us a day or two to get back up, maybe. If this one was to go down now, everything's backed up at the other side, but it's not a hot site. It would take a day or two to get back up.
Is this a requirement by the state or
Highly recommended.
highly recommended?
He's pushing it 3 days.
Pretty heavily because we run all the financials and everything and emergency services and,
And the new site would be hot in 4 hours, is that what?
very short
With
time.
this added to it, the new site will be, we can switch over within minutes.
So all the data from here,
Is there
Yeah,
already,
okay,
yes, sir.
okay.
Yeah, we have
I
a,
think Mr. Becker's.
fiber that backs it up continuously.
Yeah, what is the motion that we're discussing?
We hadn't got one that they want about to ask for.
Oh, this discussion, okay.
I get it. I get it.
So, but, okay, so what should be the motion?
So, I will entertain a motion, to approve the 225,000.
And the 71 up there, there's two.
Yeah, that's what, so it's the 71 and the 225. I
I entertain it.
I'll make a motion for that.
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? Since we already had it. Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passed unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, on the 112 down here, the carryover, we just need to remove it because now we've handled the generators. And then there's one more discussion. There's a need to replace the roof out here on the archives building. And else this needs to go back to general ops and or to kind of move it forward, we probably need architectural fees, one or the other.
Yeah, refresh, I'll entertain a motion to approve this, so I don't have to get chastised.
I'll make a motion just because I want to hear the discussion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second with Mr. Mansfield. Go ahead.
Talking to Miss Norfleet, the roof out here on the
Archive.
Archives building, it's getting late. The Archives building needs to be replaced. So one of two things, probably what I would recommend. One, if everybody's comfortable including general ops, is to approve the architectural fee, because we've got to do architectural cost to go ahead and, you got to have an architect for the roof, which is weird enough. To move forward or send it back to general ops to explore it. Anything over 25,000 generally requires an architect. Yeah, it requires an architect by state law. Maybe we need to send it back to general ops and let Ms. Norfleet.
Some legislature had a
Oh.
relative who was an architect.
And you probably had a roof on a building like this to collapse at some point, so that's all it
I move to
took.
send back to general ops.
Well, we have a motion on
And
the
let
table.
let Ms. Norfleet, that way it can come back here and move forward.
Well, I'm making an
It's been sitting
amendment.
Well,
Who-
you had the motion.
Oh, yeah, I'll, since I made the motion, I'll change my motion to send it back to general office.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Or I guess whoever, I was a second of the motion anyway, so.
Any further
Get it
discussion?
moving.
We've been going back and forth for years. These leaks are not fixing themselves. Let's somehow get to a point where we fix this. That's all I wanna have.
All right.
Then I would also request if we could send the amend building back to general ops also at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's in this big 204 and 847. It's been band-aided at best, and we've got it to where it's usable, but my thing is after I'm gone, other generations will be paying for things that's being damaged right now.
So-
Don and I are
so
gonna
we
arrange
need
to
to
climb
amend.
in the attics.
So what you're suggesting is, Mr. Long, so what you're suggesting is to amend the motion to send
Two buildings, this one
this
and
one and the
the,
other one.
back to
What's the
general
other,
office to look.
what's the other building?
Archives. Archives and the amend building back to general office to look at the roofs.
Say the first, amend building? What?
Admin building, admin
This
building,
building.
Well,
administration building.
so hold on a second on that one. So there was a resolution, August of 2021, to spend up to $365,000 to replace architectural roof railings.
They never
and
made it.
fix holes. I know, but whatever happened to the holes in the roof?
They
They
did
just miraculously got fixed. and done a resolution?
there's still leaks up there.
Okay.
They're not fixed, that's the problem.
They fixed
They
the
did-
tomorrow.
So
They fixed a few of them.
the point was there was a bid for $37,000 to remove all the roof railings, which are causing that penetration into the roofs. It's a constant problem, and so
That's part of the problem, yeah.
but this is I was just wanting to know what the cost because for $37,000 we could have fixed those leaks on this roof.
You gotta
We
fix
did.
the railing. Originally, the roof was brought in for $400,000 to be re-roofed, including fixing that issue. When it got into it, there's a proprietary membrane that's been removed around this roof, so they did not fix large sections of this roof, very large sections. And then there's also the rail issue, so there's several
So
roof
you're saying that
issues.
rail issue was a separate, just the
It's leaking there too, yeah.
That was it. Okay.
There's two issues up there.
That wasn't clear last year when we were
Oh, yeah,
discussing
you
that.
got the rail issue, and then you got an issue where there's a membrane being removed, so you cannot, or the engineer's not willing to fix certain areas of these pitched roofs. So the very flat roof was worked on, but you still got all the pitched roofs that weren't fixed, and then you also have the rail issue.
So we've already made the motion.
And then there's some
to send
drain
the
issues
general ops.
potentially.
Yeah, move both
Because
of these.
both of these,
Yeah,
definitely.
That's the amended motion. is
And Ms. Norfleet will have all the details on those. There's a whole,
Because we spent money on it already, so.
yeah, she should be able to tell, she should be able to help you get the
Gonna get
details.
into this one.
Because there's
Might wanna-
several issues.
You know, if there's cost savings and
Yeah,
things that we don't need on the building, then I think it's worth looking into.
so it goes.
I did the Photoshop on
I'm
that
just
for free.
speaking
and it
about
cost
the leaks, I'm
$5,000.
not speaking about if you should be telling about it. I'm not.
All right.
Any more discussion on this?
No.
All right.
And I remember that, Jeremy, yes, that was a
So,
discussion.
we'll go ahead and take a vote. Voting motion to send both of these items back to general ops. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion passed unanimously. All right, Mr. Lon?
And then there was another one Miss Norfleet mentioned to me. We carried over 80,000 for the upstairs for reflooring, but the original estimate was for 50 more that was in this $800,000 number here. So when she gets back the bid / quotes, we may need to bring it back here for you guys to look at it.
Your page 76
It's on
still?
page 83.
Okay.
I can kind of show you where it was residing.
Oh, this is,
I think
If
we should
you-
fix the roof before we carpet the floors.
That may be a good idea. If you go up about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 10 lines up, you see that $50,000 carpet. So that was actually part of these carryover funds too that was not captured last month. Just to make you aware, she's getting quotes and we'll ultimately have to bid it. So it's probably going to come in more than the 80,000 that we carried over, because the original estimate was around 130. And she informed me of that today when I was talking to her when we were looking at it.
So what's the recommendation here?
Well, right now I was just making the committee aware. I think next month we'll bring it back in when she gets her quotes. She's working on it. She was getting measurements.
So no action needed now.
Not at this point. She'll get your numbers and then we'll bid it.
Okay. Is that everything on, item G?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item H, just, moving the ARPA budget, for election machines to other ARPA projects. So,
General Ops made an ad hoc study, they didn't act on anything, so since this is pending General Ops, we just wanna leave it on.
I think we leave it. I think we leave this. And there's,
Same thing with the maintenance facility.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
yeah.
Also, are you
three of
meaning to
us.
leave G also, aren't you, what's left on G? Because we handled part of it and part of it's still there.
Say that
In other
again.
words, on G, we handled, or you guys handled sections of it, but the carryover part of it's still there for later. So do you want me to have her rework the sheet for the ones that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So H and I, no movement then.
You mean,
what were different?
I's the education minutes,
Oh, sorry, H.
H, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, you're saying H is on, it's on general ops right now?
H-
It's under
H
old
is
business?
on-
Okay,
It's gonna stay on old business pending.
for general ops?
Pending recommendations from general ops.
Okay, for us, okay.
Yep. Sorry, and now we're on to I. So, Mr. Long, 140, 164, any items here, and I think, any items here to highlight before we make a motion?
No, but I think the chairman of the education committee is here, so he probably has the best point of view.
I would like to make a motion for discussion on budget amendment number 2. When I get there.
It's on page 140, is that when we're
Let
starting?
me start looking at them and see if I can find it for him.
I second it.
So,
40 through 64.
what are we looking at?
140, page 140, budget amendment number 2. I'd like to make a motion to discuss this budget request number 2 for more safe schools behavioral specialists. Even though it was initially passed in the education committee, more light has been shed on this request. First of all, it was labeled pupil services, but when we asked the question
What's the motion to discuss?
to discuss.
Okay.
It was seconded by
I
that.
second
All
it.
right, got it, sorry.
There are 2 specialists on this, other salaries and wages at $62,061. And then the other salaries in the middle of the page for $94,025. Okay? Then you have the in-services for these behavioral specialists. And then there's a software cost down there for $99,000, which is going to track every student in Sumner County as far as these behavioral specialists are concerned.
Bob, which was the third one that you pointed out?
Down at the bottom of the software
The
for
software.
$99,000.
Yeah, what was the one right before
Third
that?
one was the in-service in the middle, right above the other salaries and wages for $6,000.
Okay, 6,000, okay,
So-
great.
What's your recommendation, Mr. Brown?
So, as I said, discussion, we already have 8 itinerant specialists, and the social emotional learning content that these specialists bring is not something that we need in Sumner County. We've had counselors and school psychologists in the schools for decades, and while some of these employees may have overstepped their bounds in the child-parent relationship, I don't believe that we need to add another layer of counseling as far as this is concerned, that includes the SEL. We do not need adults to help children to get in touch with their feelings outside of the parental relationship. If there is behavior that is observed, it is the duty of the teacher, the counselor, etc., to report the behavior to the parent first, in unusual circumstances to the proper authorities. However, we do not need adults trying to figure out a child's gender when our English Supreme Court justice doesn't know if she's a woman. I'm all for supporting our school resource officers, SROs, with all the training necessary, as well as equipment to make the schools safer. This area of support is what is making a school safer. It's all about not hiding a misleading, benign name which allows for indoctrination of children outside of the parents' purview. There are teachers that are afraid to address some students because of their gender identification. I thought as a minister, God was being simplistic when he said in Genesis 1:27, God created man in his own image. And in the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then I saw the wisdom of God and the folly of man who has been trying to devolve or change the first instituted created by God, which is the family. The students in Sumner County schools are not all of our children, as President Biden remarked, or that it takes a village, not meaning the extended family, but the government, as former First Lady Hillary Clinton said. School and state have overstepped their bounds in the student relationship and the parent's self-determination for their child. Just like the government, the public schools are paid for by the citizen and are subject to their needs. These are budget requests that are for safe schools made with federal money outside of the, for the Board of Education's approval only, and that are outside of this legislative body's scope. Now, these are later on, and the ones that I mentioned earlier, that we have no say-so with the Board of Education. My recommendation for the board, of school board, is to revisit these budget education appropriations. But as far as this goes, I would like to deny this budget request.
I do want to remind everyone that we have to approve or deny all of the amendments. We can't line item what they suggest.
We can't pull this one.
Well, you can pull this to the one by state law. I mean, it's not,
I mean, the whole thing right here is their own
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
that's just that one thing.
Yeah, it's just this one.
They're not pulling
So
the
we're
line,
not-
they're gonna
we're
pull the
not-
whole package.
Budget request,
Yeah,
Pulling,
is what I understood, the whole
yeah,
package.
the whole
Budget
budget
amendment two.
request number 2.
not specific lines.
not
No, I'm not pulling, no, because see, all the other lines are the benefits for those behavioral specialists.
But what's your,
I was just pointing out what they
so I'm
are.
gonna ask as a parent now,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but everything we've got in place right now, SROs, counseling for children, is adequate. I mean, so they still have, so I'm just trying to understand this as a parent, though, they still have resources to go, they're just trying. The thing that
This-
concerns me is when you said there's $99,000 for tracking, to me, that almost sounds like, well, government overreach. Am I correct in saying that, or is that just?
We got
That's
somebody
what I'm-
here.
yeah.
And that's a big concern of mine as a parent, and if for other parents too, I'm sure that's gonna be a big concern. You know,
Sir?
it's a-
Yeah, so I just, Commissioner Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, the $6,000 in-service training that you were just speaking about is something the Board of Education uses to send SROs to an SRO conference in Gatlinburg every
No,
year.
that's
Different.
that's a different one.
Okay, there was some
That's
confusion, there was a lot of that.
80,000.
Good,
That's
good.
80,000.
As long as it's different.
Yeah,
pots.
no, it's
Perfect.
different, that's
Thank you,
totally
sir.
different.
So at the end of the day, our
And-
kids are still, I'm sorry.
And I have reached out to the school board and I told them I would like for them to revisit that one budget amendment, because they send me a whole omnibus of all kinds of stuff in one budget request. I would like for them to pull that stuff out and leave all the other.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Ms. Allred, did you?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make it for the parents that may look at this at a later date. Kids are still safe without this, right?
Oh, yeah.
So SROs are still in place,
Oh,
the
yeah.
counseling. I hate to ask a stupid question, but I just want
No,
to get that
no,
on the
that-
record that the kids are still, have those resources.
This is
regardless.
just for an additional 2 behavioral specialists. We already have 8 itinerant.
Okay.
They're moving around to different schools and stuff like that. But this is for 2 more, to bring it up to 10.
Yeah, that tracking had me very concerned on that, so that's.
Mr. Becker?
Can you explain again what this, I mean, like tracking just sounds bad. What exactly
Well-
is tracking in this case?
Yeah, they're just putting in whatever the results of them going in and finding out what the problem is with the child and then their recommendations. And a lot of times this is done without parental, involvement.
So, go. Did you, go
I
ahead.
was, what the, Scott Langford, who was, what one of the school representatives said was, the idea being if a kid always acts up at like 10 a.m., well, maybe he doesn't get fed at home and figure something like that out, and they can provide a snack. Interventions like that is the idea behind it, and at least that's what the school is representing. So when they're, take with that what you will, but that's what we were told is the idea of tracking is to try to pinpoint what might be an issue that they wouldn't get if they didn't find a pattern.
Well, I'm almost frightened by that as a parent, that you're saying, and I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, but tracking is almost stereotyping a child. It goes from middle school to high school where behaviors tend to change, they're maturing, and say you got this tracking thing on this kid.
You know, that's an interesting point that you just made, because when I asked Mr. Langford if there was any PII made in the incidents, and he said no. But in order to accomplish what you said, personal identifying information, but in order to accomplish what you said, there has to be, right? Because if you're just doing the incident and it's person X, you can't build a pattern on person X because you're just reporting the incident. So those two statements can't both be true.
Mr. Chairman, all students are followed by a student identification number. The social security numbers have been taken out because of the fact that we have illegal aliens in our system, and you cannot, anytime you see a 999, we used to be able to see that. When you had a 999 social security number, you knew that was an illegal alien. They took all that out. It's only at the guidance counselor, but yes, they are tracking them by student
Yeah, I mean,
identification.
but that, that's just one layer removed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a database somewhere.
Oh, yeah,
Or a spreadsheet that would link back
yeah.
a number.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they are identified, yes,
Okay.
definitely.
That's interesting, because it just occurred to me when you made that statement that those two things couldn't both be true.
Maybe he thought you did the available or would be made public, but
Well, yeah, and I mean, you could make the argument that it's obfuscated by this number, so, okay, that's just an interesting thought. So, so your recommendation then is
Deny it.
to deny this. I have only just one caveat. And to be fair, the director of schools did ask if he needed to come in, and I stated this time that he did not, because this had already been through education. I only hesitate here because, no one in the schools is here to represent a different opinion. Would it be possible to send this back to the education committee?
We can do that.
I mean, I'm not suggesting.
We can do that, I have no problem.
Yeah, because does that accomplish the same thing here? And that at least affords the schools the opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I have given him the opportunity to put together the people, to revise all of these things, and especially there's a year-end encumbrance that failed on a second in the education
Yeah,
committee
I
because
remember that.
it had a whole lot of library books on there. And I wanted to give the school board time to look at those things. And I said, if you wanna pull all those library books out, resubmit, I'll go ahead and pass it. No, I haven't heard anything yet. And I have gotten an email from him saying he is asking his staff if there are any problems.
Okay.
And if so, we need to know, you
It's-
know, very quick.
I would, this is my recommendation, and it's your motion, but I would, if I'm just trying to think on the opposite side of this, I would like to be afforded the opportunity to at least address it. Since this had, you know, they had understood that this had already been passed. And I feel like that would accomplish the same thing. It's not moving past this point. So go ahead.
But this did pass education.
It passed the education committee, the first time, but we have, again, found out
New
more information. That was what was, troubling to us, was we passed it, not understand, because see, it was entitled pupil services. Now, the ones we got in this latest packet for this month said safe schools on there, okay? But they explained to us, these were behavioral specialists for safe schools.
So, in my understanding, if I heard you correct, so the county already has 8 of these specialists, and this is a request to move to 10. So are you, the information you gained, are you feeling that 8 is adequate, or you don't even like the idea of having?
I don't like the idea of them being there,
You don't, okay, so you don't like the idea of.
but I can't do anything about those 8, not yet. They do have federal funding.
What does that mean?
Well, they have, again, there's a whole laundry list of stuff here that we're not gonna have any say-so. It's the Board of Education, because, it's federal money that comes straight to the Board of Education. Instead of federal money that goes through the state, then we have some say about it. And if it's county money, we definitely have some say about it. But
Yeah,
they've got 2 other
in this sense is what I was, on this specific example, what, are you saying that there's federal money for these additional 2?
Well, there's federal money, yeah, under, budget amendment, 142 and 143. 143 has $173,731.64, and budget amendment number 142 has $74,788.94. Now, that's later on, like I say, those are in those things that, are under, Roman numeral 4, new business, education, budget amendments, information only, pages 164
We
to
have a motion.
293.
Well, the motion's still to send it back. I made the recommendation, so the motion is to deny it. I made the recommendation, which is up to you.
We can send it back. We'll vote on it again.
Okay, so that's the amended.
We can amend
Can I
it.
get a second on this one?
Second.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on this? So all in favor on the motion to send this item, budget amendment number 2, page 140, back to the education committee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Budget, or excuse me, the motion passes unanimously. So, let me make a note here. All right, Mr. Brown, on any other things that you want to call out specifically out of the
That's
budget
only-
amendments?
That's the only one.
So the rest of them, would you
Yeah, you
entertain
can
a motion
group
to
them.
approve all? So is that the motion?
That's the motion. We can group all the rest of them.
And we have a second. So any discussion on the rest of these?
I do have a question though. So the gentleman that spoke up about the SRO training in Gatlinburg, is
That was
being
in,
approved? 'Cause when I
no,
watched- when
it
I
was,
watched the
it
video-
failed on motion, or second. The thing is, they had a lot of stuff mixed in there with, safe schools that we did not want in there. We told them, pull that $80,000 out of there, we will approve it, no problem. There were other things in there too.
Yeah.
We'll approve it, but, the behavioral specialist, no.
Yeah, I understand. So where does the SRO training, where does that
Well,
sit right now?
Until they come back to us. Now, I have,
It sits, are you saying it sits in education right now?
twice, yeah, it's at the education. I've reached out to them twice, verbally, during the education meeting last week. I told Scott Langford face to face, I said, revise these, we'll do it, you know? And then I sent Del Phillips another email Monday or Tuesday of this week. And I said, please get back, I think it was Monday. No, it was, I think it was Sunday. I said, please get back with us. And he answered me on Monday, is what it was. He said he's having his people look at it, if there's any problems, and he would get back with me. And I haven't heard from him
Do we
yet.
know when that training, I'm assuming it's probably scheduled training, or can they just go into any
I
time?
don't know.
Can I ask, do you happen to
You
know?
know,
It is scheduled training, it happens in the summertime when SROs aren't in the school. It's actually put on by TNSRO, which is the Tennessee Association of School Resource Officers. People go from across the state. And it's also state law, they have to have a minimum of 15 hours of specialized SRO training every year. We give them 40 hours of in-service training for Sumner County patrol deputies. They get that 16 hours there in Gatlinburg. So if that's not approved, it's something we're gonna have to scramble on and make sure we.
I wanna make sure that they get all the training they need and are required, so if I'm understanding you right, the training is not until the summertime, so.
Correct.
Yes,
So-
in June,
Okay,
in June after the school closes for the
Okay.
summer.
okay, so
It's
it
already-
sounds like we got
It's
a,
already been this year,
okay,
so this would be for
next year.
next year.
so why, okay. Now I'm curious why it even came up for discussion in the education.
Well, it was in the education committee. It's just that
Yeah.
it failed on motion.
But what
Or
was
second.
it in the education committee
Is it
agenda
before
for?
June?
Safe schools.
It's after
It was,
June.
it was a larger package.
Yeah, it was.
This being one piece in it, that's, I think, what.
Yeah, that was one
I
piece.
think what he's asking is our year ends in June, so if it doesn't happen to summer after June, why would it be in this year's amendments?
Yeah,
I think that's a question.
That's
Yeah,
a
I'm
question
trying to remember why it's
school
in this month.
Is it after June or is it before June?
It's in June.
Before June
So
30.
it'd be
So it
his
would be
fiscal
this
year.
year.
It's his
then.
fiscal year, that's why.
Yeah.
But,
It's before June 30.
They're
I mean,
it's
I,
appropriating the money very early.
it's probably a safe assumption that they would know about that training
Yes, sir.
when they put the budget together in the first place.
Yes, sir.
So I'm confused why they would need to make amendments if they already knew about the training, but maybe it was oversight or something. But, okay, that's all.
Any other discussion? All right. What was the motion? on that?
Motion to approve all the
Approve the rest, and we did have a second on that. You had a second, right? All right, no more discussion. Go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, we're through old business.
Can I ask you a question? The nonprofit stuff, is that on this agenda?
It's
What do we decide about that?
a subcommittee.
No, I know that.
We haven't had any discussion on it yet, so.
Is it on the agenda at
No.
all? I was just looking through it. Maybe, like, I know we already approved the agenda, but I know it's an item meeting.
I think that you said that you guys were gonna try to get a committee.
I
Can't
can't,
remember what we said
I
about that.
forwarded it to you and we discussed that briefly, but we never circled back around
We
on it.
didn't.
They're a separate committee completely.
The
The
only
discussion
thing
was,
is-
do we still need do we just do it here and there in budget, or because that was a new creation like 2 years ago? Or do we keep the ad hoc, the nonprofit committee as was, which
Yeah.
Mr. Becker was on that one. You know, what does this committee want to do?
Yeah, so you did. I think you sent an email to me and I don't
I
know that we added it.
We did.
I don't know that we can add it at this juncture.
I think like 2/3 we can add it. The 2/3 vote.
2/3
I
is
like to make a
beginning.
motion to add item, under new business 6E, the nonprofit allocation panel.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Okay, thanks.
we will add that to this.
We added D, it's going to be discussion of this budget transfer for the directors.
All right, moving on to new business. So we struck A1, I believe, the budget amendment, since we didn't even discuss that. Moving on to A2, lease for the new Canon copier for the nursing department, page 294, 296. Mr. Long, any thoughts, any notes on this?
Nothing, I think
That's another from the education. We passed that one in the education committee.
Is there, so that one is passed, is there any change in maintenance of effort? Is this anything new being appropriated for this copier?
No.
Nothing, it's,
It's just
okay.
approving the contract.
So, sorry, I asked a question before we had a motion. So, I entertain a motion here to approve A2.
Motion.
Can I get is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Yeah, one discussion.
So we're on page 294, right? How much, where's the dollar amount?
I think it's at the bottom, 6950.
69.50 a month.
Yeah, it's a lease, 5-year lease or something.
I'm sorry, where is it saying? I apologize.
It's on 295.
$69.50.
$69.50 a month.
Kind of stamped there at the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah.
my question is, I know in the it wasn't unanimous. Was there any comment as to why someone voted against that?
I can give you an answer as to why.
I still wasn't
It was
unanimous.
Commissioner Miller that voted against it. I don't know why.
Okay. All right, I was just curious, because someone reached out to me and asked me, and I was like, well, I watched it, but I wasn't really. And so it's $69.50 a month? Okay. All right, appreciate it, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, so we have a motion to approve. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any to disapprove? Any noes? Motion passed unanimously. All right, moving on to B1. Election Commission. So, just for the purpose, this is a large one, so for the purpose of discussion here, I entertain a motion. Motion to approve. We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
For discussion, yeah. Okay, so, the floor is open for discussion on appropriation of $279,000, almost $280,000 to the election commission.
So is this a new money request? This is a new money request outside of our budget cycle? Okay. So
Theirs was cut last year during the budget cycle.
was this.
They're the part-time and the poll workers were cut last year during the budget cycle, and we've actually got this year's budget and actually a copy of the 2019 budget, which would be the same voting cycle for your comparative purposes. And this actually is back there too.
Okay.
Do you wanna see it?
To kind of give you at least an idea of what it looked like 4 years ago. And we know things have went up, but we have the same number.
We got somebody, you go ahead.
It's a midterm, this time it was a midterm 4 years ago.
So, I'm reading the email that's on page 298 from, and that all, it says, funds were cut with the direction of the finance director.
That's not true.
Is there a comment?
So
I'm trying to understand why.
It was the budget chair that actually, if you go back and look at the tape, it was not at my direction, and it's not in the minutes that way neither.
So the previous budget chair,
Because I don't
Mr.
vote.
Long, do you recall any reasoning that you chose to cut? The email says.
It was a
without
discussion. I would have to go look back at the minutes right now to be sure, but it wasn't me that cut it, I can tell you that.
What are we, well, go ahead, you
So-
can finish your question.
No, I was just trying to understand.
We may have
the
adjusted
background.
after being instructed to, but during on the board floor.
So, I think what we're trying to get at here, if I may, is, well, I guess what I'm trying to understand is what are we missing? Like what got
There's-
removed and what?
They decreased their part-time employees and their election workers. And, I can't remember exactly how they came up with the number, but they decreased several things during the meeting. But it was not me that reduces anything.
we
It was
can-
based on recommendations.
We can
You,
have
it was, where did you get that from?
I was there.
You,
Point of order.
Yeah, point of
There,
order.
but-
Like, we can have a discussion. I think what happened in the past is there, and what we're trying to get at is, I mean, at that point, to some degree, is moot. And what we're trying to get at is understanding what these funds specifically are gonna be used for, and what is not being done now. So, that was, I
If
think
you
we're
would
trying
allow,
to
I'd be
get
happy to give you an explanation if that's.
We have one question on board, and then we'll get to you.
Okay.
My question is this is an adjustment of, $280,000 of a salary, I guess, increases, which would be a ongoing budgetary increase next year carrying forward, right? And so, like, where do we compare, I guess, county to county as far
It
as
would
like
be-
our elections office pay versus other counties?
well, there's a couple of things we
Funding.
compare, and that's kind of been the discussion for several years. They asked us about 2 years ago to do a benchmark on the elections office. If you go back to 16, they were cheaper than Montgomery, Williamson, Rutherford, and all these larger counties. If you watch the curve, they are more expensive than those counties now, so that was the issue with the budget committee.
So it was down, and now it's up
Mhm.
comparably more than all these surrounding
Yeah,
counties.
except for this year, I think they're actually slightly less than Rutherford, which is significantly larger than us. That was kind of the issue they had. And then also, we've been asked, I think, by the chairman to determine the number. We've called these, and actually, when we called the other counties, I think Rutherford County has one more employee than our election, but the other two has one less. So that was a question you had for me earlier.
It is, and I want to return to that, but is there anybody else in queue? Because I think you're up next, ma'am.
Okay, actually, we did request this in this year's budget for part-time personnel. We requested $154,525. The county commission funded $29,583. Without explanation, that was cut. Mr. Long did provide averages based on other elections. Our issue
If
is
requested,
that we have every year, we have at least a minimum of one election. But one year we have one election, the next year we have two elections. It always is going to alternate. So in a year you have two elections, like this year, we had one in August and one in November, not a calendar year, our fiscal year. Those numbers are gonna be higher. You simply cannot go back and compare those numbers to a single election budget and make these kind of adjustments, and that's exactly what happened. The same thing in election workers. We requested $290,950. It was funded by the county commission, $163,000. We've already spent $97,900 as of today, and we've got a November election to run. So our budget was cut from our request, based on the numbers we had used in the past. We had increase in population, we had add precincts because of the statute regarding the maximum number of voters that can be per precinct. Therefore, we had additional expenses, additional costs, but all that was figured in our budget that we submitted. And it was just ceremoniously cut without explanation by $259,942. So when you say we're asking for more money, we're not. We're asking that what we originally requested to be funded be put back. And then Mr. Long added, on a transfer request, which will have to be paid, Social Security and Medicaid. And that's figured on on the poll workers.
So it's the same cycle as 19.
We did have the judicial judges and the judicial retention
So I guess
questions in August.
that's where I'm,
I have no explanation why they did what they did, and there was none given. It was just cut.
well, I guess I'm trying to get a point of comparison. So,
2019 would be same cycle. We have copies of 2019s
so,
over here.
yeah, what was the budget in 2019?
And the election workers make the same, and the part-time may make more than they have a few more voters. So it would be a good comparison point. But I mean, the turnout's not any better. It's much lower, so I'm not sure we have that many more voters.
Just 19, because 19 is the appropriate comparison. correct?
Yes, it says 19
That's a
on
19, this is 20.
Yeah, it's 19, that's 20,
3.
23, 22, I give you
I can't
that.
tell which.
In 23 this year.
How can I tell which is?
One of them on the top will say
got it.
2019 on the top, right here on the left, and the other one will say 2023. And if I provided them an average, that was what I was requested, I can say, on the spot.
Well, the other issue when you're looking at those is that finance also changed the classifications 4 times over the last 5 years of what accounts these workers go into. So they have bounced back from other salary and wages to election workers to part-time, and now I believe it's all been put back into just 2 classifications of part-time and election workers. So you can't look at this budget and make an apples-to-apples comparison because the line items were changed by finance.
In 19, they were paid out of other salaries and wages, and in 23, they're paid out of part-time. Election workers are paid out of election workers in both years. They're not bounced around. They were moved because part-time receives Social Security, Medicare. And they're part-time workers. You used to have what was called, you called them poll workers that were working on the machines under 189, and we told you they did not qualify as poll workers, they were part-time workers.
Well, that was your decision.
So
That's what the federal tax law says, but you
they
can't
didn't
pay them.
treat it that way.
Point of order real
Election
quick.
workers are out of, they're out of election workers. Part-time, we had to move our trainers and verifiers.
189.
But that had been years ago, David.
Right, we got the 189, if you look at 19, is 169. Election workers are in the same account, both years.
Please remember, we have more precincts, we have more election workers, and we have more registrations, so everything's going up. And all the costs have gone up for 4 years.
That point is taken. I'm just trying to get and I think.
This is salary increases. This is a $280,000 adjustment to.
What is, so I've got a couple questions here.
This isn't
Go
cost.
ahead, Mr. Maestro.
Well, this is, I mean, this isn't about cost. I mean, this is just about personnel right here. I'm looking at. So this is strictly man hours that we're talking about right now. Nothing else. No other hard costs. No registration. No. This isn't physical costs. This is personnel costs. So I mean, is this something we have to approve tonight, or
Yeah.
vote up or down tonight? Because I would like to have some time to look at this or investigate this a little bit more.
For the November election. We've got an election in 4 weeks.
And they'll have to be paid.
So, let me ask this question, is that if we don't approve this, do people get paid?
We're gonna go over the budget, and by law, then we'll probably be compelled to sue the county, because you are mandated to fund the elections.
Okay.
I mean, that's not a threat, that's just what the statutory authority works.
Is this estimate that you have, is that, what I'm trying to get at here is, how much do you estimate that we're gonna go over? Is it this exact amount?
That's what we originally requested in the budget, and that's.
But that's a different question though, I mean, is that?
Right, but we've always turned money back in since I've been administrator. In 11 years, we've always turned money back in. This last cycle, we turned in $151,000. So when I first became administrator, I was told, go ahead and budget for what you think that the budget could be. And if it comes back under, great. Don't come back like we're doing tonight and ask for more money. So that's where we are. But being cut this kind of money, we cannot run the November election with what's left in those line items.
Mr. Hyde?
My question would be, if we went over the budget, it doesn't mean necessarily that we have to be sued to get the money. I mean, I'm not afraid of a suit, period, but we could come back and take care of the
Just give us
budget,
a
could we
bill.
not?
Well, what I don't wanna happen
At
is
that
these
time.
people go to the polls and work election day and early voting, and they turn the payroll and it's not paid by finance.
Have we ever done that before?
We
never know.
We've never been cut
You
like
just
this.
said that.
We don't,
Never been cut
there's,
like this before.
we're trying to find a solution to a problem. We don't need to, have the back and forth. So, Mr. Hyde, your point here.
My point is, they would get paid, as long as there is a Sumner County government, then we could come back and rectify or whatever. So that issue's off the table as far as I see it.
That's fine.
Am I not right on that?
Because we have to pay.
There's no
somebody for
issue
the
of
law.
anyone not.
She ran over
getting paid.
last year on election workers by a small amount at the end of the year, we still paid them.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's what I'm saying, that's never been the case.
okay, so, Mr. Long, you had did you have any more questions or notes, Mr. Hyde?
No.
I think just to give you a point of comparison, if you take 2019, I'm sorry, take this year, she's got 163,831 in election workers. We add in what she's requesting, 135 makes 298,831.
Which line are you showing? 2009?
If you go to 2023, she's got 163,831 in her existing budget. We add in the 135.
I don't think we have
We don't
that
have
sheet.
23.
We just have
We have
2019.
2019.
299, page
Sorry,
299.
that's my fault.
Let me tell you what they equal compared to what was
My fault.
spent.
I'd like to see that.
She's gonna hand them to
Oh,
you.
I've got that over here.
Just to give you a point of the increase from that particular election cycle on the one line item. And the other one too.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll wait till.
Now I have some.
So here's if you take 163,831, you add, that's the one that says, if
Where's
you,
163,830?
Election worker.
so let's slow down, we've got 2023.
All right.
We go to election workers' existing budget, it's 165,831. If you take her request here and you add in $135,000, it makes 298,831, okay? You go back down to 2019, what she actually spent, which was on the same cycle, and they make the same per election worker, was 187,608. So you're going up $102,000 from 187,608 actually spent to $298,831 in election workers.
I'm gonna contend, David, you moved these accounts around.
These,
It's not
that's the
apples to
election
apples.
workers.
We got somebody in queue, Mr. Mayor.
Couple quick, one, I don't think it's fair to do dollar amounts here. I think we really need to be comparing man hours, what was required last election versus this election. My question to you is, by law, you have to have so many precincts.
Yes, sir.
By law, you have to have so many people working those precincts.
Yes,
So
sir.
many machines per precinct.
The machines per precinct.
Yes, sir.
So as long as we staff them by law, cost is the cost.
That is correct.
And that's all I say we staff them per the law and run the election the way we're supposed to.
Are we staffed minimally according to law?
Oh, yes.
As a matter of fact, just so you know, in some precincts, we have machine operators operating 2 machines instead of 1 operator per machine.
Okay,
So when
And we
there's
can do that
lines,
by
they're
state
having to
law.
jump back, we can do that. Is that optimal? No.
I got it.
Is that trying to do the best we can with the money we get? It is. Does it make the voters spend more time in the precincts? It does. But we've chosen to do that.
okay.
And when those lines get long, you guys are the elected officials. They don't like to wait in line. So we have the staff there to accommodate them. Very rarely, other than presidential, do the voters wait in a long line. So you're gonna hear about that too as elected officials, if they have to stand there 4 hours. And that's not our goal either. And I don't think it should be yours, but we will do whatever you instruct us to do. But then when that comes back, you guys have to own that decision.
And then remember, not only do we have more precincts, we have a second early voting precinct for 14 days that has to use that.
Mr. Mansfield.
So, you know, Sumner County obviously has very poor voter turnout in all elections. And I've heard people complain about early voting is too long in too many places, and it's like a waste of money. I mean, I see, I mean, I guess 2 weeks of early voting just seems excessive for this county.
It's mandated.
But that's,
That's not ours.
that's
Oh,
a state
really?
fight.
Yeah.
So it's or you don't have to have early voting, right?
We have to
You
have
have
one
to.
location.
Early
The
voting?
entire time, yes,
The
sir.
entire-
Just have one location open the entire
The
time?
entire time, yes, sir.
I mean-
And Saturday for at least 3 hours.
Can I jump in just real quick?
Sure.
Is the one location the same location, or just as long as somewhere in the county there's one location open each day?
Right, voting has to be available during the entire period of early voting somewhere in the county.
So from day to day, it could go from point A to point B to point C, as long as every day.
And then we have
One
to deal with
location's
all the
open.
people not knowing where to go.
No, I'm
Right.
exaggerating the example there.
Right.
But okay,
And
I'll
that's-
come back now, good, thank you.
As a
And
matter of
that's
fact,
why,
we moved one and we had people still going to the old one.
No, I understand. So, Mr. Mayor, I apologize for interrupting.
So I guess I'm just asking the question because I've had a lot of citizens, and myself included, I look and it's just, there's nobody there and nobody going to early voting, and especially Hendersonville, it's just trickle, like one or two people an hour. And so it's like, my question, I guess, about state laws require, I don't think state law requires us to have 14 days. I think it's if you do early voting, you have to do 14 days. Is my understanding of that
We have to
correct?
be open at some location the entire
For
duration.
14 days.
Yes.
So
Well, sometimes it's 15,
So
depending
we-
on how Saturday.
So if we wanted to change to where we wanted to do 7 days, you'd have to change state law.
Correct.
Or get an exemption through a private act. I don't know if they, or something. So I'm just asking the question, trying to think of things that I've seen complained about our voting process being too long, too much, and so it just as far as availability of locations, because we're talking about staffing issues, it's just like, to me, it's like, let's reduce it. More than increase it. That's just my personal opinion, but tag along, yeah.
And to really piggyback off of what Mr. Mansfield said, if I recall back in the May election, I could be wrong, like the Hendersonville Church of Christ location was open, I think, for the full 14 days. And then there was Gallatin location that was, I think, at the same time was going on. So, but
And then satellite locations.
what my thought would have been, because easily Hendersonville's could have been 1 week, and Gallatin's could have been 1 week. And if they're not the same time, you could transplant, poll workers and consolidate that. But the way it happened was because I was there, or I was represented there at least each of those 14 days, and it was there was maybe in planning they thought they needed 14 days, but in hindsight, in reality, those 14 days were nowhere near needed. But to me, 1 week here, 7 days here, 7 days here, throw the satellite ones just as is, and that in itself is saving
Almost
7
half.
days worth of calls, right?
Well, I will tell you, this all started under the old election commission. They wanted to expand the number of voting locations and hours in order to try to get the voter participation up. It did not work.
So it's time to reboot that experiment.
Right, so,
So for the November, so what do these numbers represent from early voting? Is it still 14 and 7?
no, we cut Hendersonville back to 5 days and left Gallatin open the entire time. Now, keep in mind logistically the way Sumner County is laid out. So our two biggest blocks are Hendersonville and Gallatin. So we kind of thought Gallatin would take in the upper part of the county and come down, because if they go to the doctor, buy groceries, anything, they have to come into Gallatin. So, we kind of figured that, and then Hendersonville, anybody coming in, works in Nashville, and then the Hendersonville block, Goodlettsville, it'll take all of them in.
So these numbers are 5 days in Hendersonville and 14 days in Gallatin?
For this election, now for.
And the satellites.
And the satellites. So if you guys, we can certainly revisit that for 2024, but this has already been published, legal notice is out, we cannot change it now for the November election.
I think we cut down Hendersonville last time. I think for this election, we planned for 14 days on both.
Okay, right, so we cut it down in August. In the November, we usually we should see closer to 50% participation for this election, a November general, based on historical numbers. So 50, if we're lucky.
And we need the satellites, but most of those are just 1 or 2 days in the outlines.
So I guess
The one, for example, is 1 day.
for this election, I would, based on what I'm hearing, and I'd make a motion that I guess we not approve this tonight. Or if you've already made a motion to approve for discussion, so I'm gonna amend that motion to not approve this tonight, knowing that if we can play catch up, just figure out where we net out. But I don't know. I'm just thinking, forward thinking. I assume we need to go through legislative process if we're gonna rearrange the election cycle.
Just for simplicity Instead of having to vote to amend his, to make it disapproving and then voting to disapprove, we could just vote it down.
Well, you just not vote on it at all.
That's fine. Well, but I guess that would be my recommendation.
So, if you follow your rules and you vote it up tonight, then it requires a second
Yeah,
reading.
that's right, that's the thing.
So you vote it up tonight anyway, unless you do override your rules, and then you can look at what she gets next month.
Well, that's kind of, I mean, because it's new, right? I mean, we have to get, has to get two
You have to do
readings. I don't
two
know that
or
we're gonna
override
be
it.
able to get it through there for the November election anyway.
So recommendation is to vote to approve this tonight, and then we can come back in November and see.
See what she's actually got.
And November is, it would be actuals.
Yeah, November would be actual.
That's
And that'd be
fair.
a first reading, and then we're in December, and then it has to go to the county commission, so we're in January.
Well,
All right, so you're gonna tell us to run a deficit budget for at least 3 to 4 months.
Didn't they do that
right?
last time?
No, the motion would be to approve this tonight, and go to second reading, goes to November, which would be on our November, the meeting, full
Right.
commission on November the 14th, a week after the elections, that we would either
And then
see
you
where
got
we are.
actuals.
And the budget
We
meeting
won't
would
have
be
our
that
costs
week.
on the
It
14th.
takes them a while to get them back to us.
Right.
Okay.
They
They've
have
got
to
to work
process
them
all the
up
payroll
and
for
process them.
350 poll workers.
Okay.
And they gotta get them up to us, and then we gotta process them.
And just so you all understand, we also have to have counting boards, because there are write-in candidates again this time.
And for military and absentee, so that's always gonna be a
So there's
cost.
gonna be more.
As
than
long as you guys
standard
will
candidate.
fund it, that-
What,
that's,
what
we're
would
not
be
asking
the,
for any
what would
extra.
be the likelihood of running a deficit anyway with having turned in, what we turned in,
150,000.
131,000?
51.
So what's the likelihood of running a deficit?
Well, because we've
Well,
already
because
turned
you
that
cut
money
it, you cut the 154 down to 29, we've already spent 17, so that only leaves us in part-time personnel, $12,000 for the November election, so we know we're gonna go deficit
And to
there.
go on through the year end for our.
Right, and
I'm
then
talking
through
about
the
a
end
total
of.
deficit in your budget, not individual.
Well, these were the two that were at issue, that were cut.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I really think that we should, like Jeremy said, just pause on this. We've got plenty of time. We're not going to, not pay anybody, see what happens, and then come back around.
I will amend my motion to move this to old business and come back to it in the next year, and we're not gonna not pay. So I'll amend my motion to do that.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
And of course, we don't wanna be reprimanded for running a deficit balance.
Totally understand, totally
So
understand.
it's back on for November, then, is that what
That's
I'm
correct.
understanding?
David-
Assuming this passes.
When will we have our total cost? It would be 30 days typically, right? So you would have it in December.
Well, we can go ahead and
You won't have them by the next meeting.
we can figure out what they are though. Once you guys get them up and we pay them, we've got them in the other system.
Okay.
We can just pull them, we can pull them over.
Go ahead.
So at what point do you plan your early voting for next year's,
It's already been set.
for next
No,
year?
no,
Oh,
no.
sorry, I thought you meant this next election, sorry.
Like, I
20
get whatever the,
2024.
2020.
23, at the end of 2023, we'll plan for 2024.
So that's
So
what
after
we
this
would do
November
next
election,
year.
there's no more elections.
So we got 13
in this
months
budget
to-
cycle.
Okay.
We have the two for this budget cycle.
so in 2024 will be convenience voting, right?
Yes,
Well, we
hopefully.
Well, we can always change that too.
Well, true, but,
Yeah.
well, we need to redraw the
Yeah,
district before we do
we're
that.
well out over
Yeah.
our skis at this point, so,
Can
Go
I just say, when you do come up with the schedule that you're going to do, bring it to us, and then we can hash all that out. Because we had a lot of ideas, but, you know, that was just.
Well, it is
kind
solely
of-
the election commission's decision
Yeah.
on
I
that.
understand
I'm not
that.
trying to.
we'll,
Yeah, I understand. But
If we don't
like I
fund
said,
it,
we'll
we don't
work
get to
within
do
your
it.
guidelines.
we'll,
It's just,
we'll,
He's gonna sue you.
we'll,
we
let me go ahead,
said keep
I'm
doing what he
gonna call a
wants to say.
question.
You're throwing me out. That's okay. That's good. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah,
Sue
so
me.
I'm gonna make, the motion is on the table, to move this to old business, reconsider it in this body, in the next cycle. Is
And
there any
to
more,
pay the
no, I just called a question, so I'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank y'all folks. Okay, healthy discussion.
Jimmy,
Moving on to risk management, go ahead, Mr.
Jimmy,
Waller.
there's three things paid from here, is your surety bonds, your liability reinsurance, and your building content. The estimates we were given were slightly less than this. We're talking about a few $1,000s. And to give you kind of a reference, your insurance, for instance, for your building content was estimated $1,266,818, and it's $1,229,035. So these are just small amounts they were over, but we were given estimates that were slightly less. And then the surety bond, those are every election year, we have to buy the surety bonds for the officials. This one was about $7,000 more, but we're requesting this. But also, I want to mention one thing. This is where we're over right now. And when I was looking at this evening, you're going to appoint an assessor. You did him temporarily last month, but you're going to have to buy a bond for him too. So we probably need to put $8,097 in the surety bond or something to cover his bond for 2 years.
And 8,000 on top of this 10,000?
No, make the 7,097, 8,097.
Okay.
And I think it'll be less than that because I was looking for a 4-year bond for the officials and his will only be for about 2, are $1,360, but I don't know how much cheaper a 2 versus a 4
So the
is.
total change then would be 11,723.
Yes, that's what I'd recommend.
All right,
Second.
okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Got it.
It'll go under old business for second reading.
Okay. General Assistance 1, requesting a new full-time employee. Okay,
Oh, I follow.
go ahead.
And what, is there the new rules, or there's no exception for second reading?
No, what it says on the rule is if you vote unanimously to override your rule, which you just didn't do, then it would go on forward. If you don't, then it has a second reading, because it's over $5,000 and it's not passed through or an emergency.
So that wasn't unanimous vote?
It was unanimous, but you didn't vote to override your rule.
Didn't try to override it.
Do you want to try to
I
override?
mean, do we?
You can say override the rule and
Okay.
anything and vote unanimously if you want to. It's either way. I mean, it's not a rush. We've already paid these. We had to pay them statutorily. We'll know next month how much that bond is for the other official.
Did we take the vote yet?
We took the vote.
I move to reconsider.
I don't think there's no urgent to have
Well,
the,
If we need to
Yeah.
we need to
If
move
there's
it.
no rush.
there's no rush
Okay.
because we've had to pay them by
Let's
statute.
Let's just breeze through this one next month, though.
Right, and then we'll know exactly how much that other bond is. We'll know exactly the amount of that other bond next month too. We should pay for it.
True, okay.
All right. Did you had a motion on the table, did you want to retract that?
I'll
Okay.
didn't get a second anyway, so.
Yeah.
It died for lack of second.
Right on the vine. Okay, so now we're moving on to B3, general sessions. This is for, a new employee. There's a packet, page 303 to 311. It's a pretty good packet. I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
One of the information, what's the total amount being requested?
64,576.50.
Okay, there it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a new position, so this is recurring. So, entertain a motion to approve. Okay.
My recommendation would be back to, include it in the budget cycle.
All right, so we'll do that, Mr. Long.
Send him an email.
Yeah, I'll work with you on this. I owe that feedback direct to him, so
Do you want me to let you send it or do you want me to send it?
I'll send it and I'll make a phone call, because I owe
Thank you,
that.
Judge Blanton.
It is. So, okay. Moving on here for the Oak Grove Fire Department.
We've already moved that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We scratched that.
On to C transfers.
Yeah.
Let me go through those real quick.
Yes,
That'd be great.
The first one's just $120 for finance. We hired a part-time employee while we were trying to transition people in. That material.
Any discussion on 1A, C1A? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 1B, please.
B, the sheriff's department's here to talk, but if you want me to do the Mile High View really quickly, we have to pay medical service for the inmates by law. We had to rebid it this year because the other one had expired. It had been several years, and they were going to increase anyway. So when it comes back, they're going to need, even if there's no overages, over $60,000, but we don't know how many overages there'll be because there's a limited number of inmates. So The sheriff's department and jail has estimated they're gonna have $198,000 extra in their guards, and they wanna move it over at medical services to cover the overage for the medical treatment of the inmates. And we really don't have any choice at this point, because we've got to provide it by law.
Motion to approve this.
That's second.
We got a motion and a second, and, Mr. Sheriff.
I just wanted to say that we cannot not have a contract, because the medical provider can now charge whatever they want to charge. So that's the reason we are in need of a contract. And we bid it out, and we have a new bidder that is going to do more for us for the money. And the way we've already put in for that budget, but the contract came over $198,000.
Okay.
So the provider we have now was gonna be $300,000
Yeah.
and not provide as much as this new company. And so that would be my recommendation.
The existing bidded on it, and it was a lot more than this group.
Okay.
So we really had no choice. We did bid because we had
So,
to, and the
this
existing came in
new
higher.
group, like we do psychologicals for new hires, they're gonna do that for us. They're gonna do the medical exams for us. And just, like I said, so many extra things that we're not getting currently that we're paying extra for psychologicals and like I said, I can't not, you passing the group.
So only one question, or at least from me. This is no net new funds here. This is moving from.
So, yes,
Expect,
we're going-
your budgeted salary
This is our
over.
budgeted salary, we're gonna just transfer it over to cover this for this year.
Okay. Or, I guess I do have one follow-up question. Do you expect that you're gonna need to, because, you're moving from one to the other, it's just me doing diligence here. This will, likely to be a recurring cost, do you expect you're gonna need to get those hires, either this cycle or next cycle?
So I would love to say we're gonna hire 40 people tomorrow,
Yeah,
but I don't see that happening between
Okay.
now and the end of,
I get it. And I know you can't predict that
and
perfectly.
I mean, I would love for 45 people to show up ready to go to work, but it's not gonna happen.
Okay.
We'll monitor those line items with him.
So
We'll monitor those line items with him, so if it looks like we will be short because of this, we'll know in advance. But we don't anticipate it.
Okay.
since this is a budget adjustment, this doesn't increase our maintenance effort right now.
No,
That was the thrust of.
no.
your-
But it will be an issue we'll have to deal with next year,
Got it.
because we gotta have to treat the inmates
Okay, yeah.
That's a quick way to get started.
required.
What's that? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Any more questions?
Did you hear that?
All right,
David.
all in favor of this motion to move these funds, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, last item.
The other is the interbudgetary, and after the discussion later, if you look down through here, all of them in white's the ones I've already transferred, and the only large one in that whole group was the education, that's from bond money to construct the new schools. The one in the blue, after all the discussion came up about the building, I didn't actually move it, it's $78,000. And it's for the Resource Authority from their bond that we just need to move the money for them to, construct the new convenience center. These are both bond proceeds, so they're approved for the overall project. We're just moving them between the line items inside of it
No demolition.
by the bond. No, there's no demolition in these, I'll make sure.
Motion, we have a second? Motion to approve, you got a second?
I hate to ask a question, I apologize. I'd like to ask a question of the county mayor of just about county buildings, information technology, installing cameras, mics, related equipment, room 112. Can you give us an update on what exactly is going on?
Yes, we are waiting for the vendor to get the equipment in, but basically what we're gonna do is just put permanent cameras
Which
in
was
here
the original plan.
that light up, flip a switch, lights up, records, flip the switch down, it turns off. And, it replaces the owl, but it will be a permanent.
Would that get like automatically streamed live to YouTube or something like that? Do we have a kind of capability with that? Because that was kind of the original goal, because I know other cities do that, like Gallatin does it now, Hendersonville does it in their committee rooms.
Yeah, I can check on that. I don't know, because we've never streamed committee meetings. We've only streamed the full commission meeting, so I'll double check,
I
see
mean,
if we
it
can have
happens,
that capacity.
I mean, just, there's other cities that do it, I
Sure.
mean, so I know it's not rocket science.
Yeah. Well, and they meet in one room too, so I can look at it. Sure.
Just,
Absolutely.
Is that, we have folks here, y'all,
Oh,
I don't think they're involved in that
you guys
project.
aren't involved in any,
Well, one of our other members of
Yeah.
the team had
Okay.
quoted this out, but it's my understanding that the video is going straight to the server, so we can spin that out pretty much immediately to YouTube.
Okay.
But it's not immediate, I mean, it's not going straight from our system to YouTube, no.
I guess that would be a request that we look into. I know that's kind of out of the scope of this, but just, is that what,
I'll look into it.
possibility, just
You want a live streaming?
live streaming,
Absolutely.
why not?
Not a problem.
I just, sorry to ask a
That's
question.
I've had the same question, I've got the same thought too, so.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that because we just never done it in this room.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
more than happy to.
Thanks, sir.
All right,
So we need to vote.
yeah, we need to vote, so any other discussion on this? All right, we'll go ahead and take a vote to approve, C2, all the interbudgetary. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, we're moving on now to the, to.
Request for
items
budget
we-
adjustment.
Yeah, to the next one, so that's, D, this is for, which one was it first?
Law Director's Office.
Yeah, I
Yes.
actually see a copy of that.
So, yeah, this was something that I brought to you, Mr. Chairman, and the Finance Director about, I spoke with Ramona last week and stressed with Abby leaving. And she had related to me that I guess she had moved money from Abby's salary over to overtime for Ramona for what she was doing, but then Abby decided to stay, so there was a deficit there, but also asked if, the request was if we could find temporary personnel for a couple of months, just to come in and to yet alleviate their office right even more. And so, it sounded like a reasonable request to me for their office to have, and Ramona had there's already somebody on payroll that was working temporarily, so it was my request to help them out, so.
So just to get it, just so we're appropriate here, and Mr. Becker doesn't kick me, what's the
Well,
motion?
I move that we approve this request for budget adjustment
Get a second
for
on that?
discussion.
Second.
Okay, got it, so,
I can tell you a little bit of what we're hoping to do with this is, Abby is best employee we've ever had up front. She's very bright. The problem is Ramona's working overtime every week, and it's hard to ask her to work even more overtime to slow down to teach Abby what she needs to actually take some stuff off her plate. So we're hoping to have someone come in part-time for a couple months and sit up front, take care of all the front office duties, and then have Abby back there helping Ramona, with all of her duties, so she can learn how to do them and take on some of those when we no longer have part-time help.
so this is a temporary position, 2 months, is that what this is looking at? About
12 weeks.
3 months.
3 months, okay, sorry, I was.
Up to 3 months. This is up to, as needed.
I just want to be sure, are we talking about necessarily where it has to be a full-time temp, or are we talking about a part-time person until we run out?
It's just temporary. It could
It's
be either.
temporary, I mean.
It should be a part-time temporary, because your temporary don't get all the benefits.
Yeah. it's
So you
just-
could work on the amount of time you're talking,
So as
they
long
wouldn't be
as-
eligible for benefits
so
if you're working
go
for.
6 months if they're
You
working
have
5
a-
hours
yeah,
a week,
yeah,
or
that's
3
right.
months if they're working, okay.
You just got a dollar
No,
amount.
You got a
and
dollar amount in your
a
budget.
limited amount of time, that way the
Perfect.
benefits
That's
don't
what
kick
I just
in.
wanted to make sure about.
Okay, is there any discussion on this? Any questions?
I asked a question, if you vote unanimously, are you gonna waive the second reading?
Yeah, I'll wait a second.
Okay,
Okay.
if it gets unanimous, okay.
Yeah, if you need.
Thank
If
you.
unan- So we vote, the motion is, who had the motion?
I
Yeah,
think
you
I
had,
did.
you had the motion, and now you're amending that to
Yeah,
get to
make
waive.
it.
And who had the second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay,
Unanimous.
unanimous, there you go. You did it.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Isabel had mentioned to you, and he mentioned to me earlier today, and to see if you guys can amend it in about possibly setting up, I guess, a program for donations for Christmas stuff here. Can we add that as item F,
For
if that's
what?
okay?
what we're gonna do, years back, we used to have Christmas activities in the building. We brought in middle schools, high schools, and, had the big Christmas tree and all that. I wanna bring that back. And, but I don't want it to be done at taxpayer expense, so I'm going to seek corporate donations to make that happen for the month of December. However, I can't just say, write the check to me, and then I go out and do it. We have to go through the budget committee, we have to set up the line item. All the funds go directly into that line item, then we have to do all the expenditures out of that line item, under the same rules, bidding, POs, all that stuff. But that's what we wanna look at doing.
And this would be all corporate private
All-
donations,
all
not county
private
funds,
donations.
I'll
Not
make a
asking
motion
for
to
any.
add this to, as item F, 6F.
And we'll track it, make
You
sure.
got a second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll add this as item F after we get to the nonprofit. Okay.
I move for discussion for nonprofit allocation.
Second.
All right.
So with our nonprofit,
We can have discussion.
yeah. So help me understand the timing on this so this is funds that we allocated in June during our budget cycle, correct?
Yes, but we have, you guys have, well, what you've done the last 2 years is you've had the subcommittee. Mr. Baker was on it last year, I believe,
I think
right?
Chairman, Mr. Hyde was.
Yes, well, he couldn't participate.
That's right, he's on both years.
Yes,
The allocation subcommittee.
The nonprofit,
but it still has to be, they still have to ask for the money and it has to be expended by June 30, just like the ones that was done back in,
They've
So they
applied
turn all
now.
their applications in by October 1.
yeah, and they have.
So they've just, so they. so
we
they
just now gathered them
turned
2
all
week, a
their-
week and a half ago.
Right.
I've received, yeah, several,
So we have all, I don't know how many applications have been submitted.
yes.
October 1st was that date, and so in the past, during, probably during this budget meeting, it's a subcommittee that reports back up through the budget committee, but, we came here and met, and each nonprofit came in and gave us a 15-minute spiel, or
Yeah.
5 minutes, or whatever
And
it was.
they decided it was better this way because the nonprofits weren't, during the normal budget process, they were given a very limited amount of time and they didn't know how much money was gonna be available. So they discussed this, so the thought process was if they set a finite amount at the budget,
Yeah.
then all the nonprofits would know how much money's out there they're all fighting for.
Okay.
So right now, we have
That's the
a,
reasoning.
Pot of money.
we have a pot of money that's defined, I don't know what it is off the top of my head,
I
but.
think it's 100, but I wouldn't swear to it
I
without
think it's
looking.
100.
But I need to
I
look.
think-
So basically, this is just a process of figuring out what to do with that 100.
So is the suggestion to maintain that previously there was a subcommittee that,
Correct.
all the nonprofits would present their
Mhm.
request to, and then they would come back with a recommendation to this body. Is the proposal to do that, to continue that, or to just have them come here?
It's not all the nonprofits, it's just a certain portion of.
It's just the
like
ones considered
senior
charitable.
citizens
Oh, that you
center.
just said.
Yeah,
They had to be considered charitable.
like the
Got it,
volunteer
got
fire
it,
and all that
got it.
separate,
Before
yeah.
the nonprofit, what it would be is during the budget hearings where we're setting everything up, each one would come in, and instead of looking at a total whole number, you would be looking at, well, this group, we think, they deserve the 5,000, and so it would just, versus, we can do $100,000 for all charitable and figure out who gets what based off of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cost controller, honestly, and because you're looking at the total before you're adding everything up.
You know,
Plus it
how
gives
much- you know how
them an
much
idea.
money you're
Yeah.
working with. And so I think your question sounds like, do we need a subcommittee, or do we just use this committee as that committee? Is that what you're?
That is
That
what
was
I'm
the
You,
asking.
you guys have already got a huge agenda.
That's
That's
what I was,
Yeah,
that's
it
what I
would
was
be-
about to
probably
say.
work
the
better with your
subcommittee-
subcommittee.
It was like, I think it was during a work day. I had to take the day off work.
It was one day,
Yeah,
but we were
it was a
actually
long day.
done by like 12 or 1, I can't remember.
We have a lot on here. I feel like
Yeah.
where we can decentralize a bit of this is helpful. It
Yeah,
was
I
very
agree.
helpful to have the education, right, come in. So,
So I'll move that we continue the nonprofit ad hoc as a subcommittee of this committee. I guess.
Would that go to committee on committees to appoint?
Well, we would do it here of whoever we wanted to appoint.
The budget usually creates the ad hoc.
Yeah, we would nominate our own
I
members, but.
believe Mr. Hyde and you were, I don't
There-
remember if
In
Mr.
the, in the
Hyde
prior
was that.
years, it was Mr. Hyde, myself, and Ms. DeWitt was the chair. And then we had,
One year we had
Citizen
Zoe
membership.
we had two
Doyle,
citizens, Zoe, and then,
and then one year we had
it was-
Brandon Webster.
yeah, he was both here.
No, yeah, I know, but there was another girl on it too, and I can't remember.
But do
the
we
name of
need, do we need
it.
to settle that tonight?
can-
Can we
As
come back?
Chair of the budget, you can name who you want unilaterally, really.
Yeah, so I don't know that we need to do that tonight.
Well, that's what I was about to ask. Timey wise, we
Well, I
need
mean,
to.
the thing about it is they still have to be expended by June 30, just like, and typically, like, they'll have, ask for half of it before January 1 and the rest of it after, but it don't matter, they don't have to. But I still have to set
we
up
can
a
wait till
day,
November.
contact
Two
all
other
them and all
things,
that.
two other things that need to happen too, or at least one, is it has to go to the full board for them to approve it, because county commission ultimately has to decide who's receiving the nonprofit
And then
money.
we have to advertise it in the paper for so long before they can get paid also.
We
So
do
that's
that.
just another-
It's not required, we always do that, we've done it in the past,
Okay, but, I mean, I could
if they're charitable.
unilaterally, could do this off cycle, and I could just send an email out and.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Done on
Under,
separate.
under this motion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you.
My
can-
motion is to continue that, the nonprofit ad hoc and form
Got it.
of the subcommittee and then
And let.
Commissioner, chair, point whoever.
Appoint 5 commissioners / citizens.
Do you want me to do like 3 commissioners, 2 citizens again?
Sounds good.
I'll make that motion,
Yeah.
as part of my motion.
All right, any more discussion on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Okay, now we are at the last item.
Motion, I'll make a motion to add this line item.
It'd
If
be
I
a-
understand it correctly, is
It
no
would be-
taxpayer money.
It would be a donation revenue line item, expenditure line item, and we'll track the balances.
I'll make a
But
motion
do you want to waive the second reading for the
and
resolution?
waive the second reading.
Because we're hard up in November.
All right, any discussion on this?
For how much total, for what's the total we want to put into it?
I think our budget's gonna be 30,000.
30,000.
Up to 30,000.
So, but, you know, it depends on what revenue.
We got a
what money's
motion.
coming in.
We got a second.
Do we have any legal issues with?
No, as long as you can even have some religious things incorporated into holiday displays. As long as it's part of a whole, if we didn't have a Christmas tree and just had like a manger nativity scene, we might have an issue, but we have a whole, large display.
I'll make a motion of up to 50,000.
All right, there we go.
Up to 50.
And that a Christmas tree.
So, do we got it?
You want to do up to 50,000?
Second.
Yeah,
All
second.
right, any other questions?
There you go, 50.
Okay, we'll take a vote on, this motion. All those in favor
Aye.
say aye. Any opposed?
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn, second.
Yeah, there we go. And, aye.
All in favor?